Have you ever heard of a career called saturation diving, dear Marco?
Saturation diving. So
Saturation diving.
I don't think I could tell you anything specific about it. I can give you my feelings.
Oh, just give me a feeling. Let's hear
Uh,
what you feel.
my instinct. I'm certain I've come across it in passing, and I think it might have something to do with oxygen saturation.
I mean, you're on the right track. Yeah.
Is it like getting down to a particular depth? Is it like saturating one's blood with pure like oxygenated gas and then diving as far as you can? Is it something like that? Ah, but you said
You're
it's a
on the right
career.
track. Yeah, but yes, you're on the right track with this.
Go on.
Absolutely. Has to do with gas in your blood and a career that revolves
Hmm.
around it. So, yeah, let's get into it.
I'd love to. Um, we've seen The Abyss together, haven't we? And you know
I
where
don't
I'm
think we
going with
watched it
this.
together, but we
We saw it
both
quite
have
close
seen it
to
recently.
one
Yes.
another, yeah.
Hmm.
I I I think I might be filling in like I think I might be talking some shit here, but I'm certain either Bill Paxton or Jim Cameron said something about that oxygen fluid being like a real thing.
Yeah, right. The thing with the rat.
Yeah, exactly.
I hadn't even thought
One of the
about that. Yeah.
coolest fucking gimmicks in The Abyss. I'm
Aside
certain
from the
somebody
fact that they
said,
really did do that to a rat.
"Oh yeah," um, but I'm certain that that has some scientific basis.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I don't think it's quite the same thing as this, but I feel like if I heard the scientific explanation again for how that was supposed to work, I feel like it may be
Yeah.
connected.
And
But this,
even as I'm saying this, I'm wondering if I'm coming from it at the same angle as, hey, you know, the hoverboards in Back to the Future 2, they were real, but
no, I
Mattel
think you're right about
took them off
about
the
that one.
market because they were dangerous.
I think you actually are right about this. Either that, or I only think you're right because maybe you were the one who told me this. So
Yeah, possibly,
it's
possibly.
hard
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say.
I could be eating my own tail.
Yeah, did I read it somewhere or did you tell
Yes.
it to me and now I've internalized it as a real thing? I don't
Who
know.
knows?
But
Saturation
let's
diving.
talk about saturation diving here. It is the absolute worst job I have ever heard of in my life. Well
Mm,
paid, super well paid, but an
good.
absolute nightmare. Claustrophobic, isolated, uncomfortable, dangerous. And while there are no specific stats on how many saturation divers die each year, they die a lot.
Well, you need to tell me what they are,
I
what one
will
is.
do just that. So, first, though, before I get into that, let's talk about one of the phenomena that makes this profession necessary, a little thing called the bends. You've
Yes,
heard of the
indeed.
bends, I'm sure.
Ah, listen, do you want me to talk about this, the fucking syndrome or the album? Because I could talk to you for a while about Radiohead's fucking seminal,
I know I went when I was like
angsty
Googling the
fucking
bends to
work.
try to get
Oh,
like, details on what it
Ben's
is and
got the
everything.
bends.
Just getting a lot of Radiohead. Like, not
Good.
helpful. No, but I'm talking about the thing that happens to your body. The medical term for which is decompression syndrome or
There you go.
generalized barotrauma.
And that's to do with like the blood oxygen barrier, something to do with depressurization. Is that what it is?
Right,
It's how your
exactly.
body reacts to changes in external pressure.
Precisely. Yeah, we
Okay.
usually think about this in terms of scuba diving and other
Yes.
ocean-based activities, but this can also happen in things like air travel. Not necess It doesn't usually happen in something like commercial flight, but can happen. Um, and basically, the bends is what happens when the body experiences a sudden and rapid decrease in surrounding pressure.
There you go.
So, Harvard Health describes decompression sickness as being similar to opening a soda. Quote, when you open the can or bottle, you decrease the pressure surrounding the beverage in the container, which causes the gas to come out of the liquid in the form of bubbles. So in decompression sickness, that happens to your blood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you slowly reduce pressure, the gas, which entered the bloodstream at high pressure, should move out of the bloodstream and back into the tissue where it belongs. But if you do this too fast, the gas just gets trapped in parts of the body where it's not supposed to be, including joints and tissue around the bones.
Mm.
So, depending on the
Imagine it's
circumstances,
painful.
Right. Yeah. Depending on the circumstances, the results of this can range from relatively mild symptoms to absolutely dire ones. Most people recover from the bends, but some of the symptoms include joint pain, dizziness, headaches, trouble thinking clearly, fatigue, tingling or numbness, weakness in arms and legs, or even a rash.
Or Wednesday, as I call it.
But the most common of the symptoms, according to Harvard, is the joint pain. So yeah, Wednesday, if you're me.
Yes, yes.
But that can last for days to weeks. More severe decompression sickness, however, can affect the brain, respiratory, and circulatory systems in potentially fatal ways, including things like pulmonary embolism and heart attacks. By the way, the plural of pulmonary embolism I learned today is emboli, but I felt
Okay.
like I would sound like an asshole if I said
No one
pulmonary
calls them
emboli.
emboli. No one fucking.
It's like, I'm
Ugh.
just going to say embolism. Like,
Yeah.
I was about to
If you
say
were to call it an emboli
rhinoceros. Yeah.
once in company, everybody would forevermore
Yeah.
think, "Oh, here comes fucking Mr.
You'd walk into her and they'd
Emboli.
be like, oh, hey,
Uh,
emboli.
here he is. How's your emboli?"
So that can happen though. Um, so when it comes to diving of any kind, training is required to avoid this. That's why you can't just rent scuba gear and hop into the water. Unskilled divers are at risk not only of not knowing how to prevent the bends, but also of panicking and making it worse. Like, imagine if you're diving and you experience
Oh,
rapid decompression and suddenly experience something like shortness of breath or dizziness. If you're not careful, what's the first thing that you do?
kick for the fucking top.
Kick for the top,
Go
right?
for the fucking light. Get me the
Start,
fuck out of this water.
right. You start trying, you work too hard, you start
Yep,
hyperventilating, all of that
yep, yep,
shit.
yep, yep,
You
yep.
panic, you
Oh,
pass out, you drown, right?
oh,
Uh,
I hate this
yeah, no,
so
it's,
much.
you're gonna see why this is just like the beginning and it gets so much worse than this. So dive training prepares you to both prevent this and to deal with it if it does happen, because sometimes shit happens,
Yep,
and you have to be able to deal with it without panicking and doing exactly that, kicking for the top,
yep.
running out of air, whatever, causing yourself to faint. So from the jump, any diving, no matter how casual, even if you just want to go look at cool fish a little deeper than a snorkel would allow, requires training to make sure you don't decompress yourself to death.
So you've got to, when you go and pass a certain depth, you've got to go back up nice and slow. Is that what we're saying? You've got to
Oh
take your
boy,
time.
yeah. Yeah, you
Mm.
betcha. So that is like the most benign thing, right? Scuba diving. Like, you learn how to deal with the depth and decompression so that you don't panic and die. But let's take it up a notch.
Please.
A recreational scuba diver can dive at maximum about 130 feet or 40 meters.
Okay.
And that's not like you or me if we got PADI certified. This is like legit recreational divers. Like
Patty?
that's like that PADI. That's like the body that certifies scuba divers. So if you were on vacation
Yep.
and you were like, let's get scuba certified, that's who you would go through. Um,
PADI.
PADI, yes. You'll notice it now
Punxsutawney
every time you go
Amateur
somewhere.
Diving Institution.
That's the one. Yeah, straight out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But yeah, these people who can go as far as 40 meters, 130 feet, those are like basically the pros of recreational diving, right? That's not, you're never going to go. I think that it was for someone to do like vacation scuba diving or whatever. I think you're, the most you can go is like 80 feet or something like that. So, not nearly as far.
Uh, not to, I don't want you to think any the less of me, but I had the opportunity when I was in Cape Town to go in a shark cage.
I wanted to do that so bad in Cape Town, but I was so broke.
Yeah. It wasn't too, I didn't, I was wearing my specs
Uh,
and like, fuck, am I going in a shark cave without my fucking glasses on? Because
that'll
if
be
even
kind of
if
useless. Yeah, that
it
wouldn't be
completely
worthwhile.
pointless. But it was just for vision reasons that I didn't.
It's unfortunate because like your money goes so far in South Africa,
Does.
but still, even with that exchange rate, that's usually incredible. It's like $300 to go shark
Yeah.
diving, and I was like, I'm a master's student. I do not have $300 to
Yeah.
spend on this. It's that or food for this week.
Yes, sure.
But anyways, yeah. So we can't dive nearly as far as these people, but peak is
Did you say
130 feet.
120 meters?
40 meters, 130
What?
feet.
See, and that's a master diver can get
Right.
that far down,
Yeah.
and
In
that's
scuba.
fuck all, isn't
Right. If
it?
you think about it, that's not hugely deep, right?
And
But
talk
I mean,
about
I don't
fucking
want to be that deep, to be
absolutely
clear.
not. But talk about hubris, you know what I mean? A master scuba diver, and you can that's all you can fucking do
All
in
you
the
can do is this.
face of the ocean. The ocean laughs at you.
Well, it's twofold, right? So at the point at like, past 130 feet, you're pushing both your body and the equipment
Sure.
beyond what they can endure. So along with the bends, diving past this depth involves the risk of things like nitrogen narcosis, which we'll come back to, and oxygen toxicity. Further, it's just too much pressure to drop down into like that. At that point, we're not just talking about the dangers of rapid decompression, but the compression itself. The deeper you go, the more it's kind of like putting your body in a vice.
Of course.
So it's hard to do that just on
Mm.
your own that way. But sometimes we have to go deeper than that. And it's not enough to just send submersibles, which can dive much deeper as long as they're not, a tin can with a PlayStation
And
controller.
built. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Sometimes we need people to be able to get way down deep to perform certain important jobs, especially in the gas and oil industries. And that's when we call in the saturation divers. Divers trained to be able to dive to depths of 1,000 feet or more.
What? Outside of a
That is
craft?
a long way. Outside of a craft. Yes.
Fuck off.
I'm going to tell you about how this works.
Oh.
I feel like just the thought of that should tell you why this is the worst job in the world.
It's
But
horrible. I hate it. But I am picturing one of these guys, right? And
mhm.
for some fucking reason, Batista is in my mind as I'm imagining a saturation, and it's Batista,
Sure.
not like wrestling Batista, but Hollywood Batista with his white beard and his pearls.
Right. Yeah. I just watched him in The Last Showgirl where he's got like nice like long hair and
Yeah, yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
fucking love Batista,
Me
and
too. Oh yeah. Put him in all
for
the
some
things.
reason, my subconscious has suggested him.
I feel good about that. He might I
Right,
think
so
though he's too big. I don't think a guy
mm,
of that size can do
okay,
this job. In fact, I don't talk about it in here, but one of the things that one of the divers discussed, because I will get to it, they eat a lot while they're doing this. But he has to like train himself not to eat so much when he gets home because you have to like maintain very specific body metrics in order to
right.
do this job.
I know, we'll get there. I don't doubt that we'll get there, but can we get there? Because oh, it feels a bit vague. Vital stuff in the gas and oil industry, like fucking what? What is a
We'll get
saturation
there.
diver going to be doing down there?
Well, just keeping in mind that like imagine if all of this stuff was above the ground, right? Or above the water. You would need human beings to do maintenance on
Absolutely.
stuff.
There we go. Okay, okay,
It's
that's clear.
underwater and
Yeah.
people still need to do maintenance and stuff. So it's like the same kinds of things you would do on any work site, but now you're doing it 1,000 feet under the ocean instead. So manual labor, way,
Like
way
10
down
times
under
deeper
the
than the
water.
most expert scuba diver.
Exactly. Right. For
Fuck.
perspective there. Yeah, absolutely. So according to an absolutely fascinating article on Atlas Obscura, it was in the 1930s that studies initially showed that divers' bodies could become fully saturated with inert gas if they remained at pressure for a certain length of time, making it so that they can remain at that pressure indefinitely as long as when it comes time to decompress, they do it extremely slowly. So the problem is not necessarily us getting the gas all up in us in weird places. It's how we release that gas afterwards or how it
Sure.
disperses
Yeah, sure.
afterwards. So,
You'd get like the mega bend.
right. Yeah. Oh, man. Big time. Uh, so, in 1964, the first sea lab at the bottom of the sea was built and occupied by aquanauts,
Yeah,
as
sure.
they're apparently called.
Yeah.
And this sea lab was a pressurized metal living quarters submerged to 192 feet, which allowed for the occupants to be able to move from inside the water to the outside without experiencing a change in pressure.
Got you.
This was huge.
Mm.
You'd never been able to do this before. It just sort of someone walks from inside a pressurized thing and can go straight out into an equally pressurized ocean and not die. This is a fully new thing that they have got going on here. And from this comes saturation diving because, you see, the Sea Lab thing was all good and well, but it was also expensive and inconvenient. So they're
Of
like
course.
putting this Sea Lab already at the bottom of the ocean, right? That means you have to have every bit of like supplies and food and all that stuff with you on that Sea Lab. And if anything goes wrong, you're completely disconnected from the
Yeah.
ability to be helped by anyone.
Yeah.
You're just stuck
It's
in
yeah,
this Sea
it's
Lab.
you may as well be on the moon.
Right. And we'll get to sort of that as well here.
Mm.
But it was not a super practical idea in that sense. So it would be a lot easier for these aquanauts if they could live in a pressurized environment closer to the surface, say on a ship or a barge, and then dive from these pressurized quarters to their work sites in what are called diving bells. Do you know what a diving bell is?
I have seen a diving bell, yes.
You've seen a diving bell.
I can call one to mind, sure. It's like a sphere, isn't it? It's like a
They look kind of, I mean, there's different kinds. I would say more like either sort of buoy cone shaped or like cylindrical, usually, as
okay.
opposed to like a round
Maybe I'm
sphere.
thinking of like an oldie worldy kind of
Right, yeah.
submersible.
Exactly. But like a diving bell is essentially like a chamber that
Yeah,
divers get into that's connected by a cable and winch system to the vessel from which they're diving.
I see.
So it can't be controlled as opposed to like so the other thing you would use to get out of something like this would be a submersible, right? And a submersible you have controls on the inside. You can steer around, figure out what you're doing. A
Hmm.
diving bell doesn't have controls. It's basically just lowered and raised to wherever you need to be. But it's connected to that vessel. And that way, you're basically going from this little pressurized place inside of the boat to the diving bell, which is also pressurized, lowered to wherever you need to be, and you dive from there. So,
Okay.
oh, sorry, I thought you had a question.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
trying to visualize it. So the goal being that the entire journey from surface to Sea Lab.
no Sea Lab. We've cut out the Sea
Mm,
Lab.
right.
So rather than a Sea Lab, you have. I'm about to tell you this actually. Let me explain
Yeah,
this paragraph,
fill in
and
the
if you're
gaps for me. Fill in
yeah,
the
if you're
blanks for me.
still confused after this paragraph, we'll go back to it.
All right.
So they're in a pressurized. Oh, let me get to this. So essentially, the divers commute in the diving bell from the vessel on which they're docked to whatever they're working on at great depths in the ocean. Then they work for 6 hours or so and return to their pressurized home, which all sounds simple enough, but it's a giant endeavor with lots of people and moving parts
It
involved.
doesn't sound simple at all.
Well, lower in bell, come back up at the end of the day.
Okay.
But
Like in a mine.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're looking at
Yeah.
like it's like taking your little tram down to the mine or whatever.
Yeah.
But the pressurized living space in which the saturations divers live is called a dive support vessel or DSV. And now thinking about this, I'm like, is that what Sequest DSV was about?
Gotta be.
It's gotta be. It's just been a really long time since I've seen that. Rest in peace,
Yeah.
Jonathan Brandis and Roy Scheider. But everything about the DSV is controlled by a huge team of people on the ship operating every element down to literally flushing the toilet of this thing. So we are on a ship, right? Bigger ship or barge. And then there is this thing in the ship or barge, which is the DSV. That
Mm.
is the pressurized place that these guys live in, right? So they are not in a sea lab in the sea. They are in the sea lab in the boat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So there is a almost like a vessel within the vessel,
Exactly that. Yes.
and that vessel is like turbo pressurized as fuck.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before getting onto that DSV, the diver has to go through a thorough medical check because even the slightest cold can mean trouble for them once they hit the high pressure environment. To put this in the tiniest fragment of perspective, just a minuscule idea of what this means, it's like being on an airplane with a cold.
Yeah, yeah,
If your
sure.
nose or your ears are already clogged and then your ears pop, you won't be able to like hold your nose and push out air to unpop them because the flow is blocked. There's something blocking that air from coming through and unpopping your ears.
Yeah.
So magnify that by a bajillion. Imagine if a diver has stuffy sinuses, they won't be able to equalize in that pressurized environment, which can actually cause permanent damage and not just a temporary annoyance.
Yeah.
Before they step onto the vehicle, they call their loved ones, which sounds macabre. Like they always make sure to say one last goodbye. And yes, there is every single time the chance that this is going to be their last chance to talk to their
Every
family.
shift.
Every shift. But the actual reason they do this is actually a lot sillier. I mentioned before that if you dive too deep in scuba gear, you could experience what's known as nitrogen narcosis, which basically has the effect of making you feel drunk as fuck. To the point where, at about 300 feet, you can fully black out. In 1919, inventor and engineer Elihu Thompson found a way to combat this. If aquanauts took in a mixture of helium and oxygen, a combo that would later come to be called heliox, it would prevent nitrogen narcosis from occurring. Yay, problem solved.
Okay.
Only thing is, Marko, what happens when you inhale helium?
Oh, well, if you do too much of it, then you black out. You pass out
Don't
anyway.
even go that far. What happens if you take a balloon from your kid's birthday party and you inhale the helium?
Well, hilarity. That's what happens. You get the amazing voice.
Exactly. These divers call their families before boarding the vessel because once they're on it, they
Yeah.
sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
That's amazing.
The
Batista with a
whole
silly
time.
voice.
Whole time. And because of this whole process, they don't just go down there for the day and come back up and depressurize. They stay in the DSV for weeks at a time, up to 28 days at a time. The
Speaking
whole
like that.
time only being able to speak in squeaky voice.
Shut up.
Whole time, burly men
Fucking
down there
liar.
doing this
Batista.
work. Batista talking in chipmunk voice the whole 28 days.
Oh,
Incredible, right?
it is.
Uh, this Atlas Obscura quoted a child who was featured in the BBC series Real Men, who talked to his saturation diver dad while he was on a job and said, quote, "It's hard to understand my dad because he talks in a duck language and I don't speak duck."
Awesome. All right.
It's so cute. And this is only complicated by differing accents aboard these DSVs. These guys will be from like all over the place. So it can be very hard to understand someone speaking both at a weird pitch and
Yeah.
in an unfamiliar accent. So
Yeah.
communication can sometimes just be super difficult when you're working these jobs, which is always what you want when you're on a deep sea death vehicle. But anyway,
I imagine it gets a lot of Serbians. You know what I
like
mean? Mad
something
cunt
like
fucking
that. It
Eastern
wasn't,
Europeans.
it was definitely Eastern Europeans for
Yeah,
sure.
for
I kept
sure.
thinking of, have you seen the movie Black Sea?
No.
Oh, you gotta watch Black Sea. This movie stressed me out so hard that after I saw it, I walked out of the movie theater. I'd gone and seen it by myself in Santa Barbara, nice little break from my stressful studies. Went and watched this movie, and afterwards I sat in my car in the parking lot for like 45 minutes, just like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Jude Law in it. What's the Northern Irish guy? Not James Nesbitt, but Michael Smiley is in it.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
lots of people either who
I've
are
got to do it.
from
This is the first time this has happened in fucking years. I can't hear Jimmy Nesbitt without doing Jimmy Nesbitt. Excuse me. I'm Jimmy Nesbitt. There you go. I can't fucking hear his name without. I'm Jimmy Nesbitt. There you go. It's out of my system.
Great. I love it. Perfect.
Can't believe you Jimmy Nesbitted me. First week back.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Anyways, Black Sea, watch it. It's stressful, but one of my favorite deep sea horror experience. It's not even, well, I always say every submarine movie is a horror movie.
Yes.
So it's not a horror movie, it's a drama, but it's a fucking horror movie. It's terrifying. Anyways,
Black Sea.
Black Sea, really good. So after they've been checked for their health and talked to their families and whatnot, they board the vessel, and then it's kind of a biodome situation. The whole ship is right outside their door, but they might as well be 1,000 miles away because no one's going in or out of that thing except to dive until their particular mission is done. So, as Atlas Obscura pointed out, the experience is like being on the International Space Station, except it only takes astronauts from the ISS about 3.5 hours to make it back from space. Saturation divers, on the other hand, have to spend days at minimum decompressing after a job is
My
done.
God. And you're only like 100 meters or so away from the surface. Yet the
Yeah,
journey is days long.
days
Oh,
long.
fuck this job. It
Yeah,
better pay
right.
well.
And there's no like heading back in case of an emergency either. Like if you injure yourself or something like that, you can't just be like, oh God, we got to go up. Like
Yeah.
you have to decompress.
And how
There's
long?
nothing
And
you
I'm
can do
down
about
there
that.
for how long? Like 6 to 8 hours.
Like, well, yeah. I mean, you're in
The
the,
work,
yeah, the work is like 6 hours a day.
but
And
it's a
then
day
you're,
or so to get up and down.
no, 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 no. You never leave compression, right? So you are in this pressurized thing, right?
Yeah.
The
On the
DSV
boat.
on the
Yeah.
boat. That is fully pressurized, right? You go in the diving bell, it doesn't take you days. It might take you an hour or so, but it doesn't take that long to get to where you're trying to get. You do that, you work for 6 hours, you come back up, and you stay in this pressurized thing. You never leave pressurization for the whole however many weeks you
Bullshit.
are on this. Squeaky voice and all that
Mm.
stuff going on. And it gets worse. I haven't even described to you what it's like living on there yet. This is truly the worst job in the world. And like I said, in a case of emergency, you cannot just get out of that thing and be like, all right, get us onto the boat, even though you are on the boat, right? And they could open that door. They cannot do that. You have to wait however many days to decompress before you can
I
come
see.
back out of there.
Yeah, I get it.
And one diver spoke of his wife having a miscarriage while he was on the dive, and he would have had to decompress for 11 days to get back up in order to reach her. At which point his wife was
The
like, don't even worry about it, just finish the job. It's not
See,
worth it.
what is really cooking me here is this is the awe of the ocean, isn't it? If
Uh-huh.
you know, those relatively short, I can see 100 meters away right now, and it ain't
Right.
that
Yeah.
fucking far, really, in land breathing terms.
Right. You're not even
But
talking a mile here.
exactly, this is how fucking hostile the ocean is
Mm-hmm.
to us flimsy fucking cartilage and
Right.
skin and bone landlubbers.
Yes.
Uh, it doesn't want us down there. We aren't supposed to
No.
be down there.
No. It's space, but it's here.
Exactly what it is.
That's really what it comes down to. We act like we're over familiar with something that we shouldn't be as familiar with as we are.
Mm.
Um, so let's see. Here they are in this DSV, right?
What
Pressurized.
if I go like The Shining in this fucking unit? What if I go nuts? Can I come out?
No.
And not even if I go nuts.
Not even if you go nuts.
Oh,
You will die. You can't. You just can't.
Get the fuck out of here. Like that.
You can't
Banging
do
on the
anything.
door.
That's why these guys have to be like super intensely trained though, because
Sure.
like
Yeah,
you
here we
need
go.
to
Yeah.
there were some of the things that I read about that were saying like even to get a job like this, you have to have a lot of people vouch for the fact that you have been in extremely stressful scenarios and kept your
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Because it has to be, you have to be able to not go crazy in a situation that is built to make you go crazy. And again, I haven't even gotten to how it's built to make you go crazy. Just you wait. Um, they're in this pressurized DSV. No way to get back out of there safely without spending days making sure that their blood doesn't turn to soda. So let's talk about what this living situation is like.
Please.
The specific mechanisms and systems apparently vary from company to company, but here's sort of a basic setup, right? You go through a hatch into a tiny round room that they call the wet pot. This will be used to get divers from the DSV into the diving bell when it's time for them to go to work. It's also the bathroom. And using it is a super delicate process that, in order to avoid people's bowels being sucked out into the sea and things like that, requires that someone outside the vessel operates it to flush it. You can't even just flush the toilet for yourself. You got to be like, hey, somebody want to get that for me?
Take a shit. Can you? Yeah.
Yeah. Which there was a quote in one of these that the guy said that one of the most valuable attributes of anyone who works in this profession is being able to shit on command. So, there's that.
Yeah, another reason why you're gonna be like mega healthy. You can't be going in there
Right,
after you've had
yeah.
like a
Exactly.
fucking
You got to be in control.
firecracker chicken.
Precisely. So, from the wet pot, they go through another hatch into the living space, which has a dining table, like an aluminum dining table, fitting 4 to 6 seats. That's basically the size of a diner booth. And this is where they will spend basically all of their time when they're not working or sleeping, crammed into this tiny booth. Yeah. They can fold up the table, give themselves a little extra space if they want, but
chill out.
That's all they've got.
Could I, while I'm in the DSV, while I'm in the unit, I haven't got to wear like a suit, have I? I can walk around.
Normal clothes.
So I could take like my Nintendo Switch down or something.
Yeah, I think you could probably take something like that.
Cards.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason. Well, so you wouldn't take any of that like with you. They take very little stuff in with them, but as I'm about to explain, you can get stuff passed back and forth to you from the outside through little things. So you'd be like, hey, can I have my Switch? And someone would hand that through because there's not enough room for you to like keep a bunch of shit with you, but someone could hand you it when you wanted to play it. A Switch didn't come up in any of these things that I was reading about, but I'm sure there's no reason you wouldn't be able to. Well, I don't know. I don't know what.
Unless pressure,
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what video game things do in a highly pressurized situation. I'm not sure.
Helium rich.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know. Maybe electronics don't fare super well because there was no mention of anything like TVs or anything like that in these situations. And I don't know if that was space or because they couldn't, like, they wouldn't work. But they go into this living space, and then the other place that they can be aside from that little dining room is the sleeping quarters, where there are 6 bunks in a U shape. And the bunks at the far side of this chamber are partially blocked in by the other bunks. So once you're in, you're just sort of wedged as fuck into your tiny little bunk space. And this is actually an improvement because in the early days of these things, like they would normally have like 3 bunks and then you would have to like just kind of rotate who was sleeping at any given time. You wouldn't have your own. So now having your own bunk is like, oh, hey, luxury. And once everybody's all loaded up, the heliox gets pumped in and they start pressurizing the joint, which is called blowdown, and takes varying amounts of time depending on the depth they'll eventually be diving to. Sometimes it can be as little as 3 hours, while other times you're looking at 10 or more hours of the pressurization process. And this whole thing is uncomfortable as shit. As first, it gets super hot and humid as the pressure increases. And then it gets super cold as it fills with the heliox because helium doesn't retain heat very well. So the thermostat has to be cranked to 90 degrees to keep the divers any semblance of comfortable. The entire time blowdown is happening, the divers will be fanning themselves, yawning, swallowing, and doing what I learned is called the Valsalva maneuver. That's the thing I mentioned before, where you pinch your nose, close your mouth, and blow to unpop your ears.
Oh, it has a name. Good.
It has a name, Valsalva maneuver. And after all of this, they'll experience body aches for hours to days. Their joints click with movement as the cartilage shrinks for the first several days that they're down there. And after all of this is done and they're more or less adjusted, this is just their lives for the next several weeks. Like I said, they don't bring a lot of stuff with them, but things can be passed through special airlocks from the outside when they need them, like books, tools, and food. The divers will eat about 6,000 calories a day because of the strenuousness of their job. And they pick their meals from a menu 4 times a day. So it's not space food, right? They're not like
Yeah, yeah,
eating,
yeah.
freeze
Tube
dried
food.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. They get real meals. And the quality of that just depends on like the chef on the boat or whatever. So it's not like 5-star restaurants or anything, but perfectly good meals of meat, vegetables, sandwiches, salad bar fare, and the like. Normal food. They also take vitamins, especially vitamin D, because they're not going to see the sun at all over the course of the weeks that they're in there. They will experience darkness like most of us will never know. So
On
now,
every level.
every level. So now let's go to work, Mark. The crew split into teams of 2 or 3 for alternating shifts and are awakened an hour before it's time to get moving so that they can eat and hit the bathroom. Hence why you want to be able to go on cue.
Yeah.
By the way, the article in Atlas Obscura did mention several times that they will just pee themselves while they're on the job because obviously there's no bathroom. So, you just pee in the suit. It's just normal. But they put on these diving suits, which circulate hot water so that they don't experience hypothermia in the freezing cold ocean. They go through the hatch into the wet pot and seal themselves off before heading through the other hatch into the diving bell, which is, of course, the same pressure as the chamber and the same pressure as the water where they're going. From there, they disconnect from the DSV and drop into the water via cable from the ship's hull through what's called a moon pool. They then put on their hats, which is what they call their dive helmets, and dive out of the bottom of the diving bell to work. And the work can be a variety of things, like I said before, from cleaning up junk in the water after accidents and disasters, to plugging and capping wells, to repairing or performing maintenance on equipment. Basically anything that they need human hands to do. That's what these guys are there for. And this often happens, like I said, in extremely limited visibility. They have a light in their hat, but divers say that can actually make it harder to see due to all the particles in the water, which then kind of disperses the light in weird directions and doesn't help them see at all.
Would there at least be the possibility of seeing like a cool weird fish?
I'm going to get to that in a
Hey.
second because I want to read to you from a Reddit post from a guy claiming to have been a saturation diver. And I say claimed because there is some controversy about this. He posted this from the same account that he had a different post about being like a 19-year-old kid whose dad wants him to get a shop in his mechanic's shop or something like that. And so people are like, did he make this up? Are these clout chasing things or whatever? I
Very
feel like
specific thing to lie about. You'd have to
right.
research the fuck out of that, wouldn't you?
His comments are so specific and line up completely with like stuff that I've read about other people that if he's making it up from a place of like deep research. My theory on this is that like it's his kid and he didn't realize he was logged into his dad's Reddit.
Yeah. Plausible.
Because it makes perfect sense for someone who used to be a saturation diver to be like some sort of like mechanical person now, similar skill set. So that's my theory. It seems really weird to like intentionally from the same account do such totally different posts. But I'm gonna just give you that grain of salt with this, that like it's Reddit. You can never tell if anyone is who they say they are, right? But let me read to you from this. I'm just gonna pick out some of the good parts here. So used to do saturation diving. I did work on oil rigs. It's pretty spooky down there. Not like particularly spooky, scary sea monster stories, but it's not a nice place. For one, it's dark as a motherfucker. Pitch black and your lamp barely goes more than a few yards effectively. The water is filled with particles, so it's kind of like shining a light into smoke. It's seriously like being in a void and the only things in this void are you and the rig. I never disconnected from it longer than I had to. It just feels like you can fall forever. I think people had asked him about like sea monsters or whatever, and he's like, didn't really see that kind of stuff. But he said more than a few times I saw something big and fast moving just beyond my light. Sound doesn't travel well in water, but you can hear the rig popping and other shit, always really deep tones. You see a bunch of really weird fucking fish, though. No joke. Divers usually see a lot of fish that aren't identified. The aquanauts have to do The Aquanauts have to do that, but they can never get the funding to come down and see what we see, so we just live with the aliens. So basically, it's so perfect. Like the corporate entity has enough money to go down and have people in this undiscovered
Yeah.
place, but like scientists can't go
Yeah.
down there
Yeah.
and like see what this shit is. So they're just seeing stuff. He said we named a few, but you don't really see them often and rarely more than 2 or 3 times. Some fish are drawn to the lamp, some stay away from it. I think the most interesting thing is what mixture was what the mixture, I think he's talking about the heliox, and depth does to your brain. When you've been out in the water for a while and literally only you and the piece of metal you're clinging to are the only things that seem to exist, your brain tries to fill the void. At least I hope that's what my brain was doing. The rig popping is really ominous because it's like a bass drum that's all around you, and the only sound is almost absolute silence. You can see things moving in the dark, and when you look at them, your lamp only goes 10 yards or so, and it's hitting all those particles. This happens a few times, and you're certain you're not alone down there. You feel like you're being hunted. A lot of guys die because they try and rush something, and that's something you can't do underwater, no matter how much you want to. You have to get in your head that, like, well, shit, I hope it doesn't eat me, and keep working. But it can be hard not to panic. They teach you tactical breathing, both to conserve and to keep you from losing it.
Did you say this movie Black Sea is about this profession?
No, it's not about this specifically. It's just like
Okay.
a submarine oil
Okay.
movie or whatever. You know,
Okay.
it's not about this. I've never heard of this before. This is all new to me. Um, but yeah, you start focusing really hard on the tactical breathing when you swear you saw something on the edge of your vision, felt the water move against your back, and heard the shift. So it's just basically like, there's not really anything spooky down there, but it's easy to convince
Of
yourself there
course, you
is, and you have
imagine
to,
Grizzlies in the fucking blackness.
right, and then you have to like talk yourself out of it, so that you don't panic. Let's see. On the topic of death, the pay was good, but the only place it could really get you was dead eventually. I know of many people who died, and I personally knew two. One panicked while he was working, as I understand, and fucked himself up. Getting hurt down there is a death sentence. You can't get back up in time to get patched up. My other buddy died because they fucked up his mixture. You can't put too much oxygen in the tank because it doesn't react well at depth. He went down and had a seizure due to it. There was a huge investigation after that one. I think the closest I ever came to dying was when I went on an excursion, which is where you go to a different depth than the bell is at. I was about to come up when I got tangled in my gear really bad. I lost track of it as I went back and forth around the pylons. Normally, it's pretty easy to get out of, but it got caught under my helmet, which is bad for a variety of reasons. Also, when you're tangled and it's not taut, you can fall or rise without noticing. So basically, I had to carefully unweave myself without snapping any harness or locks while I fell into this bottomless abyss. It was actually pretty terrifying. Tactical breathing at its finest. I obviously made it out okay. So, yeah, it's if he's making that up, it is from somebody's
Mm.
experience
He's
that he's
a hell
pulling
of
this
a
from.
writer. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, there is, I guess it's probably, now that I think about it, I guess maybe is it? No, it wasn't Black Sea. There's another movie I think we might have watched together. Did we watch kind of like a submersible movie like 2 or 3 years ago that had some people in like a little capsule thing and they were diving?
There was that piece of shit diving found footage movie that we saw.
No, no, no,
The
not that.
Lake House, not that.
No, I'm gonna have to look into this because now that I think about it, I'm like, I think I did watch a movie on this, and I thought it was with you. I have to remember who was in it though to even try to look up what it was, but I'm like, oh, I think I had heard of this, and I just didn't know what it
Mm.
was.
This is all new to me. This is completely new and completely terrible.
It's so terrible. Um, I want nothing to do with it. And once all that is done, as I said, the whole point is that they very slowly depressurize. The rule being generally about 24 hours for each 100 feet of pressure. And if anything goes wrong, it can extend it. One guy talked about how an inexperienced diver started to feel panicky about what were actually pretty normal symptoms of decompression. But since obviously you can't take any risk, that meant they had to restart the whole process over again to make sure that it was done properly, adding extra time onto the ordeal. And during these days of decompression, you have absolutely nothing to do. You're not working or anything. You're just chilling in your tiny bunk or at that tiny table, waiting for it to be safe enough for you to get off the DSV and breathe fresh air that doesn't make you sound like a cartoon. And when they do finally disembark, they are a mess. usually
Mm.
experiencing joint pain, headaches, shortness of breath, along with disorientation, exhaustion, and irritability. And just to add insult to injury, they're also usually super pale when they get off of this thing as well. And that's all assuming that everything has gone perfectly on the
Yep.
excursion. Your best case scenario is to come out like this. But Mark, while there are plenty of examples of things going awry and killing these divers, I'd like to tell you about the gnarliest one on record. The Byford Dolphin Accident.
Come on.
This tragedy was so fascinatingly horrible, the medical journal discussing the autopsy findings used exclamation points. I have never seen a journal article where the tone was more, can you believe this shit? Than this one was. And it's got the gory photos to back it all up, which I have sent you, but wait just a
I
moment before you.
My trigger finger is
Yeah, you're
itching.
ready. So we talked about the diving bell, which they get into through a series of secure hatches and latch shut before disconnecting from the DSV and being lowered to the worksite through the hull of the ship.
Mm.
On the team of people making sure this process goes smoothly are workers called tenders, who are, according to how stuff works, quote, help unspool and retract the umbilical, the thick line of air supply tubes and communication wires that connect the divers to the surface. They used to also dock the diving bell to the DSV. They don't do that anymore. And in no small part, that is due to a horrendous accident that happened on November 5th, 1983. The tender on this occasion was a man named William Crammond, working on a semi-submersible oil rig in the North Sea called the Byford Dolphin. On this particular rig, there were 2 pressurized chambers with 2 divers in each one.
The rig was called the Byford Dolphin.
The rig was called the Byford Dolphin, yes.
Okay.
In a routine he would have done every day, he connected the diving bell to the chambers where the pair of divers that had been out on the job were safely returned. In the other chamber, the 2 divers who hadn't been on shift were resting in their beds. For reasons we can only speculate about because everyone involved is big dead, the diving bell was detached from the living chambers before the doors were properly sealed shut, instantly resulting in what's called an explosive decompression. Now, you're probably thinking something along the lines of what happened with the Titan submersible, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
everyone just kind
Yes.
of
Yes.
instantly
Yeah.
becomes sea dust. This, however, left a much more gruesome trail of destruction, especially when it came to diver Truls Helvik, who had been standing in front of the living chamber door when the pressure was suddenly released. So, Marko, why don't you go ahead and open up that medical report there and maybe just describe some of these photos before I start telling you what the fuck happened here.
All right.
And we'll scroll down.
Tell me again this guy's name, please, before I look at what remains of him.
His name was Truls Helvik. And you're not just going to see him here. We'll go through, like, scroll down to the 3rd page of this and maybe start describing what you see here.
Okay, so we have what appears to be, these are black and white photos.
Yes.
And we have what appears to be a naked, grinning, seemingly.
Yeah, I guess it does kind of look like grinning, doesn't it? Yeah.
To me, the man looks as though he is frozen in an expression of mortal kind of terminal bliss, just
Yeah,
with
it's
this
kind of,
fucking death grin rictus on his
yeah,
face.
his teeth bared, like
And
mouth pulled back.
he is puffy and he is bruised.
Yeah.
What looks to be coated in deep on the print black because they're monochrome, but
Right.
this man is if you were to look at this in color, I would assume that he is purple,
Yeah, I would assume so too.
coated in bruises and swollen. He looks like a swollen fucking guy, a swollen, bruised, dead man.
Yeah, how about the next guy?
Oh my God.
Did you skip forward a page?
I did.
Yeah, maybe just give us a quick the other two guys on that page, and then we'll go into what you just came across.
So yeah, whoa, back on this page, we have Diver 1, Diver 2, and Diver 3, all of whom are displaying similar symptoms of puffy, bruised death. That's what I'm
Yes.
seeing here.
Hmm.
I'm just seeing three fucking dead guys.
Yeah, with lots of
And
bruising looking or like, yeah,
lots lots of
splotches and things
bruising.
like that all over them.
The third guy's arm looks like it's kind of, maybe a little rigor mortis is kind of bent around.
Right.
He doesn't look like he's had any fun at all. I mean, the first guy
No.
looks like he might have overdosed on, some kind of happy chemical. The third guy does not.
No,
He
no,
did
no.
not die in a fun way.
Yeah. So you want to get to the
Yeah.
next page then and talk about what you're seeing here.
All right. So the remains of Diver 4, this is figure 7. The remains of Diver 4 are in no way recognizable as a human being.
No.
This looks for all the world like the outcome of an absolutely horrific plane crash or a traffic
Right.
accident,
Yeah.
a high velocity, high speed impact. You don't the To the credit of the mortician or the scientists involved, they've done their best to reassemble it
Yeah.
in some kind of anthropomorphic shape,
Hmm.
but I'm going to use a term you hate here. We have
Oh
here a
no.
tray of chunks, mate.
It's true. It is a tray
That's
of
what we
chunks.
have here. We have a trough of distended bits that in no way resembles a human being. This is what happens when something explodes.
Yes.
This is meat. We have meat on a tray.
Yeah. You want to give a little description of the next couple you know, you don't have to go as in depth, but the next couple of pictures as well.
And here on figure 8, well, I am reminded of, we've all seen the kind of the museum pieces, which are the remains of Joseph Merrick, have we not?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing here. Oh man, this is a head, a human head. This is what
Honestly,
remains of a human
it's
head.
I wouldn't even call it a head. It's just a face. There's no
Yeah,
look. If
yeah,
you look at
exactly
that, there's
that.
nothing behind
Exactly
it.
that. It's the carapace of a head, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's the front kind of outer of a human head, obviously been reassembled by a mortician. Hollow eye sockets, no teeth, no tongue, no the entire right occipital fucking chunk of the head is missing. This guy has been decompressed very quickly, clearly. Oh my God.
Next page.
Oh my goodness. The I'll read verbatim how it's described. The opened thoracoabdominal cavities have died before. Um, Again, what you have, man, yeah.
Yeah, this is our. It's just meat. Like,
It's simply meat. It is open, distended, shapeless, without form, meat. Just an
yes.
open human.
Yes. So I'm going to read directly from this autopsy report because I feel like I cannot do better than like the incredulous wonder of the way that they
What page are you going to read
describe
from? Allow
this. I'm
me,
going to
please.
start. Well, I was going to kind of skip around a little bit, but I think
Okay.
you can kind of figure out what's like from on page 94, starting at operations A and B had been completed, or yeah, start from there because that gives. So basically, they've described what is supposed to happen being, the
Okay.
hatch
Okay.
is
Okay. Okay.
shut and
Okay.
moved in. Why don't you go from there?
Operations A and B had been completed, and Diver 4 was about to carry out Operation C when, for some inexplicable reason, one of the tenders opened the clamp. The result was a free communication between the chamber system with a pressure of 9 atm and the surroundings with a pressure of 1 atm. A tremendous blast shot from the chambers through the trunk, pushing the bell away and hitting the two tenders. The one who had opened the clamp died, and the other one was severely injured. Unfortunately, the dead tender was not sent to us for autopsy. Figure 2 shows how Diver 4 probably was about to close the chamber door when the accident occurred. The chamber opening was 60 centimeters in diameter. Unfortunately, the door jammed so firmly that it later had to be cut loose with an acetylene burner. Diver 4 was shot out through the opening and completely disintegrated.
Yeah.
Parts of him were found scattered about the rig. One part was even found lying on the derrick 10 meters above the chambers! Exclamation mark.
Do you want to go on? Yeah.
Post-mortem examinations. The remains of Diver 4 were sent to us in 4 plastic bags. All parts showed fractures and wounds. The fractures of the long bones were of transverse as well as short and long oblique types, the fracture lines being more irregular than usual with small splintered fragments. The scalp with long blonde hair was present, but the top of the skull and the brain were missing. The base of the skull was a collection of tiny bone fragments only. The soft tissues of the face were found, however, completely separated from the bones. It
That's
fucking
what that
blew his
picture is.
face off. It blew
Yes.
his face off. The left upper arm, I'm not, that wasn't a quote from the autopsy, by the way. That was
No, an
my
interjection.
incredulity. The left upper arm had been separated from the body just below the shoulder joint. The right upper arm was torn to pieces but still attached to the body. Both hands had been separated from the lower arms. The right thigh, leg, and foot were missing, but the knee joint was found. The left thigh had been separated from the pelvis just below the hip joint. The pelvis itself had been divided into 3 parts. To one of these parts, a small segment of the small bowel was attached. The penis was present, but invaginated.
Yeah, and that means exactly what it sounds like. It means I looked it up. It means the penis was turned inside out.
Turned his dick inside out.
It sure did. Yeah.
Just a moment's silence, please.
Just for this poor guy. It goes on like that. Everything is pretty much separated completely. Do you want to go down to the autopsy on divers 1, 2, and 3 there?
Yes, the autopsy on divers 1, 2, and 3 were performed 3 days after death, and the findings were essentially the same in all 3 cases. The rigor mortis was unusually strong. The hypostases were light red, and in 2 cases there were numerous petechial hemorrhages in the livors. All the organs showed large amounts of gas in the blood vessels, and scattered hemorrhages were found in the soft tissues. One of the divers had a large subconjunctival bulla.
So all of these things are like oh, that sounds bad. That sounds
Yeah,
really
to
bad.
be honest, these are all kind of I get medically why you have to describe this stuff, but
Yeah. So let me put this in layman's terms for you
please.
here. So Hellevik, the one who'd been standing by the door, was sucked out of it and torn open with his eternal internal organs ejected onto the deck of the ship in so many bits they delivered him to autopsy in 4 bags. The tender, Cramond, was killed by the diving bell itself when it went flying from the explosion. And the other 3 men who'd been inside the DSV were, quote, boiled from the inside when the nitrogen in their blood violently erupted into gas bubbles. The only silver lining of this is that it all would have happened instantly. They were all
Yes.
dead before they even knew
He
what
didn't even
happened here.
know he died not even knowing his dick was the wrong way around.
It was the right way, and he never had to know it was the wrong way.
Small
And
mercies.
this, yeah. So I present you, Mark, the worst job in the world.
Ah, I got questions, but maybe not for now. I mean, does this happen everywhere? I mean, are these obviously these things still exist?
Yeah. No, this is still a job people do. This is like I said, this is like the worst accident. The accidents are normally more, I mean, it's terrible, but they're like normal accidents like that guy described, or like I read one about someone being crushed by
Sure.
equipment, things
Normal
like
kind of
that.
heavy industry kind of accidents.
Right, and then compounded by being under the water. So if something happens, like,
Oh, that
someone's
face, that
hat
fucking
being
face.
crushed, then they just instantly die, things like that. It's, it's just a face, literally, like you said, blew his face off.
Uh, it feels like some of these photos should be in training, should be in the training
Oh, I mean,
process
it's,
for
it's
this
like the
job.
red asphalt for saturation divers. Like,
Mm.
this could happen. Pay attention. But like I said, they've changed the way the diving, it doesn't take a tender anymore to
I see.
detach and attach it. It automatically latches. So like it physically, that cannot happen
I
anymore.
see.
Unless there was like some huge mechanical failure. That can't happen.
Well, listeners, I have learned here, and I am certain you will have too.
Mm.
Uh, I have nothing. I'm simply transfixed by that by page 97 here. It's fucking mad. These pics are available on request. And look,
Well, and of course, that link will be in the blog. I'm not going to put them on Instagram because sometimes Instagram starts like the slide later and someone accidentally ends up seeing dead body. Uh,
well, that's happening quite a bit on Instagram anyway
right.
at the
Yeah.
moment.
Apparently, that's what Reels are
So
doing as it is. But I'm not going to put it there. But the link is in the
yes, and let's,
description.
let's stay conscious that these are human beings,
They are.
you
Yeah. Or
know,
were.
or yeah, well,
You know. Welcome back, Marko.
thanks. Let's go, girls. Good to be
Still a
back.
little disappointed that you didn't end up doing that at karaoke when you were here.
For some, all I could think of to do was Danzig. That's the only thing I could think of to do. And
There's only one
several
choice
times,
right now.
several times since I thought, maybe I should have done that. At the time, only that song occurred to me to do.
Incredible.
I don't know. I
Who
know. I
knows
know. I
where
know.
thoughts come from? They just appear.
Fuck. Who knows where they go, where they come from? Delightful to be back. Um,
Yay!
it is delightful to be back, listeners. I missed you. I missed you.
Mm,
Uh,
we
let's
missed you
see. What
too.
can we say? I mean, in the last month, you know, Western society is still riddled with tumors, isn't it? Riddled,
Yeah, it's true. Things are,
infested with pox.
yeah, things are as you left them. Maybe worse. I don't know. What's the gauge anymore?
Oh, worse, man.
What I just don't know what the scale is at this point. It's like the doomsday clock thing where it's like, oh, it ticked
Yeah,
another second closer. Like,
yeah.
friends,
Who
it is
cares?
11:59:59 right now.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
not play. So every day is like, well, I don't know. Is it worse? What's worse than worse?
It does feel worse. It does feel worse since the start of February. Just since the start of February, isn't that incredible?
Yeah,
It feels worse.
28
World
days.
leaders arguing and openly fucking at loggerheads with one another in front of the world's media this past 48 hours.
Incredible
Just
stuff.
incredible stuff. Uh, Superpowers aligning with the wrong ones, you
Yeah,
know?
we're the we're the bad guys. We're the
You
Axis on this
are.
one.
You
It's
are
very
actually now.
it's very odd. You know,
How does it feel?
not great. It's not my favorite
Because
thing. Someone
just going
earlier,
back
oh,
to the early days of this European conflict,
yeah.
at the time you were quite blasé about it, weren't you? You didn't really give that much of a fuck.
And I still like don't per se.
Yeah,
Like it's the thing where like to the extent that like obviously borders aren't real, right? Like that's
right.
not a real thing. And you can't just like take people's land or things like that, right? Like I'm for self-determination and all of that kind of stuff, at the same time like uh it's just to me, like I said, and this is often a Republican talking point, so like, it
Mm,
sounds very conservative, but what I mean is it like there was never it felt like there was never an attempt at any form of diplomacy over this stuff, right? It was just like our solution is send billions of dollars to Ukraine and just like hopefully they eventually like kill Russia. And like that's still to me
that
like
was
that's just not
yeah.
that's
It's
just
our
not
plan, is
gonna
it?
work. And so it's hard to like attach to something where it's like this is like nobody is trying to solve shit here.
Mm.
It's just kind of like Zelensky like give me weapons and us like okay, here's weapons and like that's the whole thing. So that's kind of my thing is I'm like I just don't like it's not the same thing as like say Gaza where it's like extermination, happening before our eyes or whatever. Terrible
Yeah.
things are happening to the Ukrainians, but it's also like an actual war where there's like billions of dollars of weapons being given to Ukraine to fight their side of it. And like, so that's
Yeah,
kind of my thing.
as opposed to a wholesale kind of eradication
Right,
project. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see.
Like this is about, who gets to be in charge of their way of life, not the Ukrainians will all be ethnically cleansed if
I
Russia
don't know if I
takes
agree with
over.
that because Ukraine was in charge of that way of life and somebody decided they shouldn't be
Right.
anymore.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, so they're fighting for the right to still be in charge of their way of life. If they lose,
Hmm.
they are not wholesale going to be slaughtered, right? Like, just Russia's in charge of them, which is bad. I don't want Russia to be in charge of Ukraine. It's a different scenario than what America is doing in Gaza, where we
Yes.
are wholesale arming a genocide, right? Like we are helping Ukraine fight their war, but also like why is nobody trying to like have a conversation here?
Super briefly, and this is appalling that I would interrupt this conversation for this.
Oh no.
Uh, in front of me on the TV, we're live at the Oscars red carpet,
Mm,
and who's just shown up?
who?
My favorite saturation diver, Batista. He's
Oh
just rocked
shit.
up on the red carpet, and he looks great,
Of course he
fucking
does.
smooth.
I love that big old teddy bear.
Oh, I don't know. I don't
It's
fucking
just,
know.
it's like it sounds callous or whatever, and I like innocent people shouldn't die in any conflict. It's more of like a matter of degrees of like what is our role in this in America, and we've basically gone from like a side of just unconditionally arm Ukraine, give them all the money possible, all that kind of stuff, to like now like fuck Ukraine. And it's like, well, this is not a like what are we doing here? This is we're taking a team side on this, and then we're doing like a whole genocide in another part of the world. That's more my take on it.
Yeah, listen, I get it. I do. Where it kind of where it goes above and beyond that for me is the implication of what comes next or what could come next, you know.
Which is, I mean, fair. It just feels like also, I don't know, there's like such huge instability with everything that we're doing. Um
Mm,
that we're destabilizing the world, and Ukraine
yeah,
is just one part of the world that we happen to be destabilizing at this moment. uh we give a lot of attention to it in America because they're white people and we relate to them, but we're doing this all over the place. So, I think because I don't live on that landmass, this is just another group of people that we're destabilizing at the
yes.
moment. And it matters, but it's also kind of a like, we have given them billions of dollars to fight this. I don't know what more you want from me. You have all of my tax money. I have nothing left to give you but everything that I got paid last year. So
Hmm.
I don't know.
Of course, which is not a change in your position. I get this. I do.
Mhm.
But listen, nonetheless,
Yeah.
thank you.
I
I'm
still
back.
think
And that's great.
what happened the other day was insane for
Mm,
sure. Like and if you've been living under a rock or you're listening to this, 5 years later in the wastelands, that insane meeting between Trump and Vance and Zelensky where they just kind of attacked him
just
was
press gang the guy.
unhinged. Yeah, it was
Mm,
it was crazy, and that's like, yeah, that's the kind of shit that starts like world wars.
yes.
That's a problem.
Yes, yes. Again, far from it being, and while you're not wrong in what you say, it is just another symptom of a destabilized world.
Hmm.
Uh,
One that America seems to think that we can just buy. I mean, that's at the
yes.
root of this, right? Like we went from being like we support Ukraine with all these weapons and things like this, and now we don't support Ukraine unless they'll let us like buy them, basically.
Oh, exactly this. Yeah.
Like,
Um,
okay, Great. We're
Supplies
gonna
of
buy
cadmium.
them and
Supplies
Canada
of
and
cadmium,
which is a
which
whole
is very
thing.
useful to electric vehicle manufacturers. Isn't that interesting?
It's so crazy. I wonder if like there's like anyone
Isn't
like
that
in the vicinity of the government who would be interested in that.
That's
Just
very interesting. But yeah,
curious.
it's the only symptom of a destabilized world so far, which feels like a real front runner, a real contender to be a tipping point for
Right.
something very awful.
Yeah, because it's the kind of thing like, whenever like when you were in school and you learned about like, oh, what caused each of these world wars? It's
Oh,
always
I've
like
thought this time and
it's
again.
some dumb thing. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
well, we someone did this, and then this country was an ally with this country, and that
yeah,
meant that they had to get involved. But because this was an ally
exactly.
with this one, then they had to get
Alliances dissolving,
involved.
blocks
Right.
shifting allegiances. Yes,
Exactly. And it feels like we're putting ourselves up against the entire rest of the world's alliances at this point and only aligning ourselves with like Russia and China, which
the
is,
bad guys, the baddies.
kind of the baddies. Which, like, listen, again, like, borders aren't real. None of this is real. I don't think any, like, we are the bad guys. I think that's the one thing that is interesting about this is that America has always been the bad guy, just like
And the
Britain has always been the bad guys. Like, we are not on the right side of anything.
borders
But it's
aren't real
weird for
to
it to
you
be
or I or
obvious.
anyone progressive, but
Right. But they
to the
are in
rest of the world,
terms
they
of
very much are.
geopolitics. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I just say that to say, I
Yesterday was
don't.
St. David's Day, right?
Yes, it was.
And I had a couple of Happy St. David's Day dads from my kids.
I wondered.
I did.
They say it in Welsh or they say it in English?
No, in English.
Yeah.
And I smiled and went, "Ah, thanks." But what I wanted to say was, you may as well say that to the fucking wall because the very idea of nationality is embarrassing to me.
Sure, yeah.
It is disgusting that somebody would think to celebrate the fucking parcel of land they were born on by accident. Fuck off. Let's move on
Well,
and evolve. That's what I
but you
wanted to say to my
do,
kids.
yeah. But you come from, I mean, what is the reason for that though is coming from a place that was oppressed by the people that own
Yeah,
this land that you live on, and so
indeed.
it's not the same kind of nationalism as British nationalism is. It's
No.
a way of sort of taking back the fact that you weren't allowed to say this, not that long ago. You weren't allowed to speak Welsh, you weren't allowed to have like this culture, and so it has like a slightly different meaning than me saying happy Independence Day or something like that.
Of
Fuck
course.
that. Like, what does
Yeah,
that mean? They come from different places, I would say.
they
It's
do.
Yeah. But
Yes.
yeah, that's it's a weird time, and as you always say, we are sort of documenting
Yeah.
whatever this spiral is. And I would say we've predicted a lot of craziness over the years, but I don't think we ever thought we'd be
No,
here.
we certainly didn't see this last couple of days coming.
No, I think we've been fixated mostly on like the climate catastrophe.
Yes.
And the diplomatic one didn't seem like it was going to be
No.
quite like this.
Fascinating though. Again,
It
in a
is.
weird sort of way, to privilege.
I don't
It
know
is.
about that.
I mean this.
But
Uh, in a darkly comedic way. That is often how I describe it to people when I'm pressed on, Mark, why don't you smile much? I when people wish they'd never asked that question,
mm,
that's usually the line I finish on. In a way, it's kind of thrilling, and I still mean that.
yeah, I think that like one of the interesting things from like being here in a like quickly waning superpower, right? Because beyond what we're doing on the world stage, we have everything that like Elon is dismantling over here, just being allowed to dismantle like our entire government, RFK being allowed to dismantle our government. So, our health departments being dismantled, our education being dismantled, our social services all being dismantled. Like, this is, potentially no privilege will exist. Like, I think that's the thing that people tend to have this perspective that things can't get as bad as they could. You know what I mean? Like where like no
Yeah,
one
I do.
thinks the worst case scenario could happen.
Yes.
Um, and it can.
Yeah.
And, we could all be very fucked. And someone was said on Blue Sky earlier today, like, hey, someone let me know, like, did other countries welcome Germans during World War II when they tried to escape from what Germany was doing? And it's like, oh, yeah, like even if we want to get out of here, there's no guarantee as we're making ourselves enemy on the world stage that people will continue to accept Americans if we want to
Mm.
leave. And so, it's a scary kind of thing to be like, everything is like legit crumbling. And, I don't know if 1 week I won't be able to talk to you anymore because there's no power infrastructure or things like that. There's no internet or whatever to be able to do that.
Look, I mean, and we've said this before, haven't we? It's been a staple of our conversations these past years. That things are as bad as they've ever been. Things are only going to get worse. Da, 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 da. But it is actually happening
Yeah, it's
though.
like legitimately
Whoa!
happening extremely quickly. You know? Ugh.
Wow!
Yeah. So it's
A
kind
little
of
bit of a
it's a
light bulb.
terrifying
That was a
moment.
little bit of a light bulb moment to me there.
Mm.
This thing, this multi a pronged approach of catastrophe that we've always known was coming is
Is
it's
actually here, like fully.
actually,
Like best case scenarios for America are bad. Like the
yeah.
amount of funding that's been stripped from things, the amount of people who've been fired from their jobs, the amount of stuff that's just been destroyed and dismantled. Like best case scenario, we're not coming back from that. It's
Oh yeah, completely,
it's
completely. Even
over. We're
when, yeah,
fucking
no,
cooked.
no, a tiny, tiny percentage, if any of that stuff is going to get reinstated, the
Right.
rights, you
Hmm.
know,
Yep.
um, wild.
Wild. Absolutely
Yeah,
wild. So,
yeah.
like I said, keep your keep a spare bedroom for the Edmondsons.
You do. You've a couple of times you've talked about moving over the past few years. Is that still
Oh
on?
yeah. Well, yeah, we've been thinking about it for a while. There's no way we're like gonna retire in this country, especially now, but there's never like here, if you're old and not working, we don't have health care.
Of course.
So it's like the idea of retiring here when Social Security is probably already going to be gutted. It was going to be before all this anyway,
Mm.
with no health care for everyone and stuff like that. Like there's just no way to live like that. So we always knew we're going to leave here like at retirement. It's just will we move before that is the question where we were looking, 15 years down the road or whatever. It's like, well,
Well,
maybe not.
we might be speaking Russian over here.
Who knows? Right? What a world. What a world. Coming in
It's
hot,
good. It's good.
friends. Coming in hot. This is,
Yeah.
listen, we got to get everything in now that Mark's back. A good gory
Yep.
story, a little bit of doom
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
state
yeah,
of the
yeah.
world, all of
How
that.
has the last month been? How have things been going?
Well, listen,
From a Joag perspective, who's been on?
it has been a delight.
Here we go.
Yes, we had Ryan here, which was, always wonderful. We had Anna and Steve come in here,
Mm,
had a little maritime story, which was wonderful.
nice.
We had Brianne here, who has never been on Joag before, telling a delightful tale last week. All the thing, everybody chose things that were like very Joag themed to
Mm.
talk about, and it was just wonderful. So thank you to all of them. If you haven't listened to those episodes, go back and check them out because they were such a good time.
Cut this out or don't. I don't really give a fuck. The world's ending, but I think Brian's quite cute.
Oh, of course
Just
she
gonna say
is.
that. Just gonna-
She looks a lot like Stat to be
Yeah, I get
honest. They
that.
have very
Yes,
similar faces.
yes,
I made like a side by side thing once, like don't they look a lot alike?
yes.
And then I forgot to send it to you, but
There you
you
go.
know, they're all cute. You're all beautiful people, and
Yes.
it was
Also true.
wonderful to have you guys on here. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for that. And yeah, it's been a delight. Joag wise, obviously we missed you dearly. Obviously, I
Mm.
missed you dearly. I tell you all the time,
Well,
that
yeah.
I'm like, I just miss talking to you, and so I'm glad you're back. Um, but for everyone here, listen, it's March. And that
Yeah.
means Ko-Fi mailers.
Oh,
You
cool.
are about to get mail from Rome. I collected all kinds of things when I was in Rome on my trip to send to people. So that will be coming to your mailbox this month. Keep an eye out. I'm excited to send all this stuff to you. I have it right in front of me. It's going to be a good old time. So if
What is
you
it? What format does it take? What have you got there? Is
Oh, I'm
it?
not gonna say. I don't want to
Oh, okay. No.
spoil it
Yeah,
for
of course. Yeah,
people.
fair enough. Silly question.
I do have one thing for you as well that I got there, but I figured I'd
Mm.
send it with everybody else's. But yes, so if you are um our upper tier of subscribers on our Ko-Fi, you've got mail coming, and I'm very excited to send that to you. Along with all the things that we're going to be doing. If you haven't yet, make sure that you watch Battle Royale because that is what Kristen and I will be talking about on the fan
What
cave
a
this
fucking
month.
movie.
Right? I'm super stoked about this. I haven't watched this in ages. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I'm stoked to introduce Kristen to
what a
this one.
movie.
Yeah. I feel like this was like a real like moment for me. Like I just feel like it like opened
Same.
some sort of
Yeah,
like
same,
door when I
same.
saw
Yes.
it for the
Yes,
first
yes.
time. I remember sitting in a friend of a friend's house in Western Massachusetts and someone putting this on TV and just being like, oh, I feel like I'm a
I
different person now after watching
One
this
of my
movie.
first ever horror movie t-shirts was a Battle Royale shirt, and
Oh,
it
amazing.
was beautiful, and I wore the fuck out of it in my 20s. It was this beautiful kind of vector portrait of one of the girls.
Oh, amazing.
Just
I love that.
superb. Yeah,
Yeah.
great film.
So if you've never seen it, definitely watch Battle Royale. But give it a rewatch if it's been a minute because we are going to talk about that
Mm,
in a week and some change on the fan cave on our Ko-Fi.
wicked.
And of course we'll let's play,
We will.
we'll talk about something, have a little snack.
Went back to
Um
that piece of shit Star Wars game for an hour.
no more
Yeah.
of that game. You
Fuck
gotta
that.
let it go. I saw there's been going around, maybe some of you guys have seen this as well. There's been going around, I guess on Roku, which you don't have there. I don't know if it's on something else. But on Roku, you can watch like some sort of like the OG version of Star Wars, like the first one. Um,
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so it's like as you would have seen it in 1970, whatever. And
Well,
everybody's been
there's
watching that.
an ongoing, I'm certain it's still ongoing, project amongst like a load of semi-professional kind of video archivists and video editors to create the ultimate despecialized versions of the Star Wars trilogy.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
close to exactly how they would have been in theaters, cobbled together from loads of different sources, loads of different
Mm-hmm.
prints.
Yeah, I'm sure that
Um,
must be
that is one of
what
those,
this is. Yeah.
obviously
Um
all wildly unofficial and illegal.
yeah, because people keep saying like watch it while it's up, watch it while it's
Yeah,
up. So
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
where it came from or anything
Yeah.
like that. And obviously, like there was a part of me that was like, oh, maybe I'll watch it. And I was like, why? You don't like Star Wars.
No, no,
It was
no.
like everyone was so excited though that it was like for a minute I got wrapped up in it. I was like, oh boy, yeah, let's all watch Star Wars. It's like I'm not gonna have fun doing that. I don't like Star Wars.
Nope.
But I did think about telling you about it before, and then I was like, you know what? We had that whole conversation on the Ko-Fi
I
that even
no,
those are tarnished for you now because of
not
where it's gone.
interested.
So, you
Not
know,
interested.
but that does exist. Also, crazy. Listen, oh, you know, in
Calm down.
2016, Mark, it has been a minute since I talked to you.
Calm down.
You know
Take a
how I
fucking
get.
decompress or
You
you'll end up
know how
with
I
your dick
get.
turned inside out.
Just gonna throw my face here. I get excited. No, so you remember in 2016,
Mm.
like all at once in like January and February, just like all the celebs died. It's like, well, at least,
Maybe.
they, yeah, it was like when Bowie and like Prince and like all these different
Oh,
like
right. Yeah,
huge
sure, sure, sure.
celebrities like
Yes.
kicked off all
Yeah.
in like one go. I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. And everyone was like, oh man, 2016, this is the worst life we'll ever get.
I do remember that. Yeah.
And that was like, right before Trump's election or whatever. And like now we're having another moment of like all the celebrities dying in one fell swoop
Yep.
here. It's like they're being taken back to the
Yep.
mothership.
Yep.
Um, and the one, of course, that's like drumming up the most conversation right now is Gene Hackman. I mean, obviously, I'm a millennial, grew up on the Nickelodeon and whatnot. So Michelle Trachtenberg, I can't say I'm like surprised she looked terrible. But it is like a big bummer that
Laura had to tell me who she was. I had no clue who she
you
was.
didn't watch Buffy.
I did not. Laura, however,
Oh,
was a big fan. Laura was a huge
I'm
fan of Buffy,
surprised
and
by that,
I
but okay.
passed me right by, just didn't care.
Fair
Um,
enough. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't if you
there
didn't
weren't,
watch that, I don't know what else you would have watched
there were no
with her in it.
circumstances though where she was ill from a liver transplant. I think.
Yeah, apparently, which is interesting because like I had looked at her Instagram like 6 months ago or whatever, and there'd been something where she was kind of like fighting back against people talking about what she looked like. And, she was like, don't talk about women, all that kind of stuff. But people were like, no, but like you look like sick. Like your eyes are like kind of yellow. Like this is like usually a sign of sickness. And I wonder if she didn't know at the
Mm.
time that she had some sort of liver thing, and if like fans talking about it pointed it out, like how, I mean, fuck her, but Amy Schumer, that happened with her, that people commented on like her weight gain in her face, and at first she was like, oh, how dare you all talk about women's weight and stuff like that, and then people were like, no,
Fuck
but it's
off.
like I have this disorder and it makes my face look like that, and it turned out she like had an illness
Okay.
that made her look like that.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm glad she's sick because fuck Amy Schumer. But yeah, I wonder if Michelle Trachtenberg went into treatment for the liver thing after people
Yeah.
pointed out, like, hey, like jaundice
We
is like a
can
bad sign.
we can but speculate, and in that frame of mind, let's talk about Gene Hackman. Let's
Oh my God.
let's by all means speculate on what the fuck has happened there. So,
Yeah.
9 days.
Between when his pacemaker said he died and when they found him.
9 days.
Yeah.
I
And it
can't.
was a go ahead.
Who am I thinking of in my head there hearing that voice? That's Principal Rooney from Ferris Bueller. 9 times. You know
That's your
exactly what I'm talking
impression
about, don't
of
you?
Principal Rudy.
9 times. Yeah.
I,
Nine
I hear
days.
it. It's there. Yeah.
He'd been
Uh,
dead on the floor.
and it was, when he died initially, there was like the articles came out and they were just like, no foul play suspected, you know, but his wife, and his dog are dead. I was like, oh, okay. So like basically, I was actually pretty impressed with the internet on this, that like of course there was like the posse of people who were like, oh, it's like,
Yeah,
something crazy. But like most people were like, oh, it sounds like carbon monoxide. And it did. But
but it
then like
wasn't.
later that day, they came out with more details on this, that they were like, it's suspicious, but still no foul play is
It's
suspected.
suspicious as fuck, is what it is. And
I honestly don't think it's that suspicious to me. This is very you and me here. The conclusions that we
oh, is it
come
not?
to
Is it
on
not
this.
suspicious? Is it not? It's
No,
not
I don't. I
suspicious
mean,
that
not in like
he
a
and
foul
his
play way.
wife and their fucking dog were all found dead in separate rooms 9 days later. Nothing suspicious about that, is there? No.
No, not in a foul play way, I don't think. No. I think
What other
because
kind of play is there that would lead to that kind of
okay, well
circumstance, that kind of outcome?
think about how they were found, right? So Gene Hackman has fallen and is at the bottom of stairs.
All right, well, let's workshop it then. So we're in the Hackman
We're
residence.
in the Hackman residence, right? Yeah.
Gene, 95.
Yes.
He's
95 years
taking a
old. If you've seen
he's
any
taking a
pictures of him in the
tumble.
past few years, frail as fuck,
Yeah.
found at the bottom of stairs. Very well could have fallen down them. Uh, and
That's
then,
that's that's established, is it? He was found at the bottom of
yeah,
some
he was found at the
stairs.
bottom of stairs. Yeah. And then his wife is found in the bathroom with pills surrounding her. And then one of the dogs is found dead. The other two dogs are still alive and were found just running around.
Right, this is new information to me. So I thought it was just the one dog and that dog was dead. One
No, 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 no,
of
no.
the dogs was
One of
dead.
the dogs was dead. And I think that dog had been in like a pen or something like that. So likely hadn't eaten in 9 days or whatever between
I wonder,
when
had the other two dogs eaten?
there's nothing came up
If
that
you
they had
follow
eaten
me.
of the people
What, in 9 days?
in
In
9 days.
nine
But
days.
they were free, so they could have eaten other things. I think that the door might have been open or something like that, so they could have been able to go outside as well. I'm not entirely sure.
9 times.
But this to me says Gene dies distraught wife either intentionally ODs or fucks up and ODs in her like sadness. And then the dog is in the pen and starves to death, and the other two dogs are just running around but trying to figure out what to do because their owners are all dead.
Okay. Or right.
Or
Uh, I mean, what do we know about how do we characterize Gene Hackman and his wife's relationship? She's the younger of the two by
she
some
is
30
younger.
years.
Yeah, she was like 65, I think, something like that.
Was he known for, because I don't know this, but was he known for like emotional abuse? Was he known to be abusive
Not
in
to my
any way?
knowledge, no.
Just a good guy?
As far as I know, nothing came out that was like this guy's like bad news bears.
The pills, though.
The pills, yeah. I mean, he didn't
I, you know,
clearly didn't feed them to her.
but if my spouse had taken a tumble and died at the foot of some stairs, I'm not then going to go, and kill myself. That's ridiculous.
Well, so listen, Shakespeare wrote a whole play about this shit.
Come on.
So
In the fucking actual real world of people,
people
you
do
ring
weird
the fucking
shit.
ambulance,
Yeah, you would think. But he's
you
dead
know?
already.
Or what? So I'm going to leave him there, not move him, not call anyone at all. Our family, our friends,
He's
call no one,
distraught.
and immediately go to the bathroom and die of an overdose. Get real. I don't know what happened, but I know what didn't happen, and it did not pan out that way. Gene's taken a fall and died. Quick, I must end my own life.
It
Come
makes
on.
more sense for that than to have thought about it for a while and done that. That's like an in the moment overreaction. Oh my God, my life is over. Pop some pills situation.
Not, oh my God, I'm about to be even richer than I already am.
You know, so I am very concerned. This is more did Mark my murder his wife content right here. Your only thought is money.
Something, something has happened here that you or I have not countenanced yet. Something has gone down there, and it's suspicious enough for an investigation to be opened.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean that would happen in any death. There's always an investigation. But B, like, yeah, if it's not straightforward, investigation doesn't mean we think something untoward happened. Investigation means we're not sure exactly what happened here. We just got to look
I'm
at it.
gonna run to the bathroom. No note, no
Right, yeah.
calls, no ambulance, no
If you call
police.
someone, they'll stop you from killing yourself.
I am simply going to end my own life at the same time as I've seen my husband dead. No, it just does not, it just doesn't hang together. Columbo would fucking eviscerate this in no time.
I don't know about that. It seems
Uh,
perfectly reasonable to me. People do shit like this all the time. I watch a lot of Dateline, Mark. People do weird shit like this when they are distraught.
okay, well, I'll be watching this one, right?
Yeah.
See you back here.
Yeah. Like, I may not
When
have all the details correct, but I am fairly certain that it's going to end up something very mundane like that. I don't think no one murdered anyone in this situation.
and it's just, you know, the internet, whilst well behaved, very quick to Gene Hackman was one of the greatest actors of all. Na, 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 na.
Well, that's
A
because
lot of
there's
people,
no evidence otherwise.
a lot of
You
these
think at
people weren't
95,
around for Chris
weighing like
Benoit,
90
and it
pounds.
fucking shows.
Well, Chris Benoit, come on.
No one saw that coming either. He was an excellent
Sure, but
wrestler.
he was
He was
in.
a
Look
wonderful
at the
person,
man.
friend to everyone. Oh yeah, or,
He was
he had the
also
brain of
okay.
a
Come
fucking
on,
90-year-old, obviously.
right? Listen, yeah, he was built up, easy for him to commit murders of people smaller than him.
Yeah, but what I'm
Also,
saying is,
yeah, brain was garbled, and people knew that he was spiraling into Christian fundamentalism.
in the time between him no showing for Monday Night Raw and being found dead, and then the news emerging about the atrocity he committed, loads of people were very quick to praise him, weren't they? Loads of people were very quick. They had an episode, they
What?
had a tribute
What was
episode
Gene
on Raw.
Hackman going to do? Have you seen pictures of the man? That man was half the size of me. What do you think he
I'm
did to his
not
wife?
saying he
And then he
fucking
fell down the
put his
stairs.
wife in the crippler crossface until she died. I'm not saying he did that, but I'm saying the whole circumstance is fucking weird as fuck. and immediately ending my own life because my husband has fallen down the stairs and died simply does not ring true. Like I said,
We'll
I
see.
don't know what happened. CoRri, I don't know what happened, but it ain't that.
I think it's that. I think it's that simple.
All right. Well, isn't this
Maybe
good?
it was even an accidental OD, but I think it's as simple as, she tried to medicate one way or another, whether to an end or not, because how else do the pills end up in her body and on the floor?
Here to
I
make
don't
it
think the
interesting.
dog did it.
How do you know the dog was in a box? I didn't know the dog was penned up.
It was in one of the articles.
Well, that's fine. That tucks the dog away nicely. That
Yes.
squares that one off. That's fine.
Hmm.
Because I gotta say, the dog having been killed was a big part of my theory about why it was murdered.
Yeah, that there were other two perfectly fine dogs,
Okay.
is an important detail, I think.
Well, that
We'll
that
see.
does
We'll
take.
return to it, friends.
Oh, you fucking know you will.
So today,
I did
uh,
watch. Well, we're gonna
oh,
talk movies now, aren't we? Yeah.
yeah, we
Okay.
are gonna talk movies. Um, we figured we'd just ease in
Ah,
for our sort of main topic, if you will, and just go through like our top flicks that we watched in February, including both of us managed to get to the theater several times. I mean, that's
we
not that
did.
unusual for me, but it's a little more unusual for you. Um, and just sort of, yeah, have a
And
little
and maybe not
rehash.
even top in terms of quality, but top in terms of notability. The most
Mm,
notable films that we have seen throughout February,
okay.
uh, because there have been some.
Yeah, there have.
Let me just crack up my letterbox here on my computer because my phone
Well, let me
isn't.
start. I like watched a few classics this week,
Yep, as
or
have I.
this month, I believe that are worth pointing out. So along with Hackman, we lost Roberto Orci this week,
Mm.
who was
Ah,
the
distressing to me.
co creator of Fringe,
Yep.
but also co-writer of Star Trek 2009.
Yeah.
And that was one of those movies I remember seeing in the theater and just being, in love. I was always, a big original series fan of Star Trek. And so I was stoked for it in the first place. And then it was just so much better than I possibly imagined. And I watched it over and over and over again. But it has been a minute since I'd watched it. So I put that on in his honor. And I love that movie just as much as I loved it back then. It holds up so well. And many people have said it, but that opening scene of Star Trek '09 is something so special, and just an example of Orgy's writing, that just hits so hard all these years later. We first see our man Chris Hemsworth as Kirk's dad in the heartbreaking opening in which he dies, but Jim Kirk is born. So
Mm.
fucking good. So Star Trek '09. If you haven't watched that in a minute, go back and give it a watch. It's so good.
I haven't, and I am minded to give it another crack because it did nothing for me at the time.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. The other, the sequels, maybe not as much, but '09 helps. I mean, like I said, it's predisposed because I do love
Of
TOS
course.
so much. But I was talking about it with Brianne and Kristen, and Brianne was like, "Yeah, when I went and saw it, like I was like, oh, I don't even like Star Trek. I don't know why I'm seeing this." And she's like, "It changed my life," you know? It was like completely just like her interests all shifted after that one. And I had gone and seen it with my friend Emily, who also like does not watch sci-fi at all. And I remember her having the same reaction, just being like, "What?
Nice. Very
Why was
nice.
that
Very nice.
amazing?" So yeah, maybe give it a revisit all these years later. See if it does anything for you.
Right, we'll talk a little of Companion then, shall we?
Yeah, companion.
Look, at this point, anyone who says that horror is not booming
Mm,
is delusional, is
truth.
absolutely fucking deluding themselves. We're in a place where horror can take swings at the moment, where horror is no longer if it ever was, but it certainly isn't anymore, a commercial risk.
Right. Yeah, not at all.
You know what I mean? Just this year, we're only in March, and there have been, just off the top of my head, three, four, or more
Yeah.
big, big kind of marquee horror movies released just in
Yes.
the last like 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's huge.
Fantastic times to be a horror fan. So validating. And when you get just casually, really, really fun, really smart, um, really self-aware movies like Companion, it's a great time to be alive. Very interesting to me how it's a reflection of the times, like horror so often is. You know,
Yes. Hmm.
if it isn't horror about nuclear war, or if it isn't horror about, space and alien invasions, or horror about zombies and capitalism and whatnot. Hey, hello, it's AI horror, horror about robotics.
Right. Yeah.
And
AI and incels.
yeah, exactly this. Yep, exactly this. Um,
Yeah,
like,
it was fun going to this one. I feel like this has a similar thing to Krista and I were talking about 10 Cloverfield Lane on the Fan Cave a month or two ago.
yep.
And I was saying the thing about 10 Cloverfield Lane is it's clearly made in such a way that like they weren't going to call it 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like you can tell, and this was going to be a reveal later on
Yep.
in the movie that
Yep. Yep.
it
Yep.
was
Yep.
related to Cloverfield. So that whole movie, like you're really supposed to not have any idea whether there is something outside or not, right? You're with Mary Elizabeth Winstead in this bunker going, is John Goodman making this up or are there aliens
Mm.
out there? Like, where is the safer place to be? And like, that's sort of what was intended. And obviously then the the company, the production distributing, they were like, yeah, no, nobody's going to go see this movie if they don't know it's a Cloverfield sequel. So they had to change it.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't think that would have been the case in 2025.
well, I think that's with Companion absolutely how this was made to be. So I didn't really watch a trailer, or if I did, it was long enough ago, I didn't know what it was about. And if
Yep.
you don't know, this movie
Yep.
is set up with that as a reveal.
Yes.
And that is very fun. Like it's starting to like piece things together
Yep.
as I
Completely.
watched it. Like, wait, did he call her beep boop? And like all
Yep.
this, like, why does she know what the weather
Totally.
is? Like, I think this, clearly the marketing, they decided, no, let's go all in and we'll tell people out the gate that she's an AI girlfriend or whatever.
Well,
But it works
it's
so well if, like me, you go in and you have no idea.
well, I didn't. I had no clue. I had
Nice.
absolutely no clue. You know my policy.
Yeah.
If it's a movie that I think I'm going to want to watch, I will learn
Yeah,
nothing
just don't.
outside of what I have to know about it. And I had no clue that that's what it was. And I was
Yeah.
rewarded. I was so
Mm-hmm.
rewarded because
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
I'm not the most switched on of guys sometimes when it comes to
It's
movies.
true. Yeah.
I do like to watch, to read a Wikipedia article about a movie I've just seen. I will do that. Um,
Yeah.
and I didn't even see it coming that he was an incel. I thought that he was, that they just described that scene where they met perfectly at face value, and I was like, oh, that's
Right.
lovely. This is going to be a nice, fun film. I didn't see any of it coming.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It really, I think that's a very fun ride. And obviously, like, I would feel like we were spoiling it, except literally the poster is her with the robot eyes, and like
yeah,
all
yeah,
the marketing for it is clearly as an AI. But it really did reward the fact that I had like
yeah,
no clue and was like, obviously, I pay more attention and like notice those things. So I
yeah.
put it together before it was
You're a
revealed.
super recognizer.
Super recognizer. Um, but like it was a fun journey to
Yes.
getting there and being like, wait, now hold on. Like what's
Yeah.
happening here? Yeah, so Companion is like just very, very fun and creative and in your face about what it's saying and
Mm.
just a really good little ride.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Super, super fun.
And the
Uh,
music is great too. Really great soundtrack.
is the music great?
Yeah.
I can't remember it.
Well, watch it again and you'll be like, oh yeah, the music is really good in this.
I feel like I should remember. Is it contemporary music?
I mean, it's kind of a mix of various things. They use some sort of oldies, they use some new wave, but it like really fits
Oh,
each
it
sort
does,
of
doesn't it? Yeah,
segment
yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, 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 yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
purposefully chosen
Yeah.
music throughout this, which I really like.
Yes. Companion is so good. I want to watch it again.
You should. I watched it again with Keo, and it was a delight.
I love that closing shot in the credits of her with her arm out the fucking window.
Yes. Wait, I guess we're kind of that might be well, it's not really a spoiler,
No, not at
but
all. I've kept it vague, but it's excellent.
you're told in the beginning what is going to happen at the end. So again, that's not really
Yes.
a spoiler either.
Yep,
Um,
lovely. I will just dismissively talk about the Wolfman. Stupid, stupid
oh
film.
yeah, yep.
Lee
That was a
Granell, you're
waste.
worth more than this. You're
Yeah.
better than
It's
this.
very
I
disappointing considering how much and everybody in that are like great actors and stuff too, and it just like is just
It's no one
bad.
else's fault. It's
It is.
nobody carries the weight of this film on screen, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's doing their
exactly.
best. Everybody's doing their best, but it's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
Stupid idea and a
bad
stupid
movie.
film. And very disappointing. This is not the same guy who made Upgrade. This is not the
Yeah,
same
or
fucking
Invisible
film.
Man for that matter.
No, no.
Yeah,
Um,
or Saw or any other number of things.
oh
This guy has a
God.
fantastic track record. This is a very rare full miss.
And you've earned it, dude,
Yes,
right? But
we all
I
get
know you're
one.
listening. I know you're listening, but I expect better next time.
Yes, here, here.
Werewolves are fucking stupid anyway. I hate them.
It's true. It was cursed from the beginning.
Werewolves, grow up. Give me a fucking good Dracula any day of the week. But I don't like werewolves, and I didn't like this werewolf.
Hmm.
Um, Interesting. Yeah, it is interesting because at one point Wolfman was the 3.5, right? I was like, oh, this is actually an interesting take on the werewolves. And then the longer it went on, I could almost feel it shedding half stars as it went along.
I just say the thing for me that like out the gate I hated is that like this family in this movie had clearly never met each other before.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Great,
like
great,
I
great
have
joke,
never
great
seen
joke.
less chemistry in a family to the point where I was trying to figure out how they ended up with this kid. And
Yeah,
I was like, is it his kid and like she's like the stepmom or
yeah.
like are they siblings and like this kid somehow came into their life? I was like, there's no way this is actually a family. And considering this movie really hinges on the family
Mm.
dynamic, the fact that you're like, these people don't know each other, makes it very difficult to enjoy the Wolfman on top of all of its
Boo.
other sins.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Outside of the Joag purview somewhat, but I talked about my policy there about not knowing anything about films I'm probably going to watch.
Mm.
Sometimes that is sometimes that has weird effects, right? Sometimes that plays into a weird kind of rug getting pulled out from under me from a film I thought I was watching to one which I was watching. I'm going to talk about We Live in Time,
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you watched this.
right?
Yeah.
Ah, great film. Really enjoyed it. Really, really, really great film.
Your
But
son's
not,
pick.
yeah, for some reason, Peter or Owen picked it. I thought I was getting into like a time traveler's wife kind of movie where Andrew Garfield was going to go back in time and save Florence Pugh from dying.
Yeah.
And that never happened. It is not that film. There's no time travel at all. He
No.
doesn't discover a portal or anything like that.
Just
Um,
regular movie about a wife dying.
Regular movie, but a tragic event. Uh, so great, good laugh, but not what I wanted. I wanted a time
Nice.
travel heist rom-com kind of
Mm,
movie.
yeah.
You can get it.
It's too bad. It's the press tour was too much fun for like what the movie actually is.
Yes.
Another rewatch that I went back to, that now I'm like, I think you're gonna love this movie. I rewatched In Cold Blood, which I hadn't seen since high school. And this is one of those things. So like I went to independent study school, so I basically got to like pick what books I read and things like that.
How
And
does
so
that work
I,
then?
how does that work?
Yeah.
So I didn't like my junior and senior year, I didn't go to like regular high school except for like Spanish class and stuff that they didn't teach at my independent study school. So at my independent study school, I have one teacher for everything except math and French. And those were two like other tutors. It's basically like one-on-one thing.
Hmm.
And give all your assignments and then you do them on your own. And then you come back the next week and you have like another 2 hour session with your
Wow,
teacher
wow.
and talk
Never
through
heard of
these
that.
things and set off. So it's more self-guided. It's like individual college, more like, you don't sit in a classroom and someone guides you through things. You have to do it all yourself and then come back and talk
Fascinating.
about it the
Never
next
once
week.
have I heard of that as a concept. Seems to work well for you anyway.
I hated being in classrooms and things like that. There's too many people in them.
Sure.
So it worked out really well. I went from being like the worst student on earth to like acing everything except for math, which still took me too long. But anyways, I had chosen to read In Cold Blood in my English section of my schooling. And then I was like, I fucking love this, which if you've never read In Cold Blood or heard of In Cold Blood, it's considered the first sort of true crime novel. It's a novelization of a real event.
Mm,
The murder of the Clutter family in the 1960s. It was written by Truman Capote and made into a film, the lead in which would later go on to murder his own wife. But it is phenomenal. This is like filmmaking, especially when it comes to like the cinematography and the lighting. Like,
yeah.
god damn, what a movie. And the acting, everything about it is just like when you're watching it, you can't help but be like in awe that people made this movie.
Mm,
And rewatching it, now 20 plus years later, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is even better than I remembered it being. So In Cold Blood, I highly recommend. If you've never seen this movie, watch it. And I think Mark, it is like right up your alley with like the old movies that you have enjoyed.
okay.
It is, yeah, it's really something special.
Okay. Yeah, nice, 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 nice. Sold. Did you get around to the Gorge?
No, I didn't watch The Gorge. I just couldn't get up the interest.
Yeah. Well, look, hey, I mean, s again, silly. Motors along, quite fun. Always great to see Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, I didn't know she was in that.
Not a serious film. Not a serious film.
I
Uh,
feel like I just kind of have like a like mehness about Anya
Gene,
Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller too that makes me so I'm like, whatever.
I want to know why every film she's in, she obviously has some kind of agent or some kind of clause in every film that she signs on to work in that they do something with her eyes and put them on opposite sides of her head. I don't know why they do that. Is
Weird. It's
she
weird effects
is
that they insist on doing.
is she like incognito? Is she in witness protection or something? Because they take her eyes and they move them super far apart. I
It's
don't know
one of
why she
those
keeps doing
weird
that. I'd like to
things
see what she
about,
really looks like.
well, it's like, the people who have like really stark looks have always been a
Yeah.
thing when it comes to fashion and Hollywood and
Have
stuff like
you
that. Like even look at like the girl with the teeth in White Lotus and stuff like that. Like
have you ever been in a game where you've got to like create your own character and you just hold down the
see
button
how
until the
far.
eyes move to the opposite opposite sides of the head? That's her.
Uh, yeah, she's made it work for her. That's for sure. She's
Yeah.
turned that into like an ethereal look instead of just like
Yes.
weird looking. Instead of
What can I
looking
tell
like
you
a
about the
hammerhead
gorge?
shark, it makes her look elegant.
Um, the gorge, the gorge, the gorge, the gorge. So come with me on this. Have you? It's definitely a recent phenomenon, right? Like
Okay.
Alien Romulus had a similar issue, and I think I might even have said this at the time,
Okay.
that it feels like you're watching a fucking video game cutscene, or
Mm,
you're watching someone play a level of a video game.
sure.
The 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 movie is arranged into set pieces
Right.
that are all computer animated. There isn't, I don't think there's a single physical set in this entire fucking film. I
Right.
mean it. I mean it. The
Yeah.
entire thing looks like it's done on a green screen. It looks like a COVID movie,
Right.
which is inexcusable in 2025.
Hmm.
And it just looks like you're watching someone play a game. Oh, now they
Yeah.
have to go through the level in the factory. And now they have to go through the fucking car
Right.
chase Jeep level.
Yeah, I watched
It
something else like that just in the past few weeks, and I can't remember what
does
it
that make
was, but
sense?
it
Do you
was
know what I'm
like,
talking
yeah, the
about?
very distinct feeling of like this is, yeah, I'm observing a video game, not people
Yeah.
doing
Now
things.
here's this bit. Oh, now we've gone
Hmm.
on to this bit. And it's
Time to meet this
yeah,
NPC who sends them on their
yeah,
quest.
100%. Oh, they found some information here. Oh, right.
Right.
And it destroys immersion.
Yeah.
There's nothing and that's another symptom of there being no physical sets in the film.
Hmm.
There's nothing to root for in this movie.
Right.
Although, you know, on the surface, it's got stuff that I feel as though I would like. It's got really good gribblies. The monsters are great. Uh,
Nice.
action is great. Fucking Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross soundtrack
Oh,
were
that's
fucking
right. Yep. Hmm.
so much to like that
They're
you
not like
think
super discerning about what movies they soundtrack, though, it feels like.
they are getting less so.
Yeah. That's not like really a prestige thing anymore. Bless them. They make a good score, whatever they're doing, but they'll kind of do whatever.
They do, and it is very recognizably him. It's very
Hmm.
recognizably them. It's got all of their hallmarks.
Yeah.
The kind of some of the piano phrases that you'll often use. You can see them a mile off,
Yeah.
and it feels like they started off being quite discerning. We're only working with David Fincher, and we're doing
Right.
Pixar, and we're winning Oscars, and they are paying the bills, I think, a little more
Yeah,
these days, maybe.
exactly. Got some college
Uh,
age kids, I'm sure.
exactly this. And he's got like 5 kids, I think, Trent.
There you go. Yeah.
So yeah.
Someone's got to pay.
Yep. Uh, let's see.
I watched another one I think that you would enjoy,
Go for it.
called Monolith. Have you heard of this?
I think I've seen
Have
Monolith.
you seen
No,
Monolith?
I think I may have done.
It seems like one you would like. It's, very sort of closed space. Like it's just this whole thing, kind of like you've seen Locke, right?
Uh-huh.
With Tom
Yes.
Hardy, right? Where
Tom
he
Hardy in the
spends
car.
the
Yep.
yeah, spends the entire movie in the car. And this is very similar to that, where it's like one woman in her house, talking on the phone to people and video chatting with people and
No, I
things like
haven't
that.
seen Monolith. You
Okay.
liked it. 4 stars.
Yeah, I
Ooh.
really liked this movie, and I think you will too. That's basically sort of her. She plays like a journalist or like a podcaster essentially who has been like disgraced in some way. Like some article that she wrote or something like that came out that in one way or another uh caused problems, and now she's trying to make her comeback, and she has been sent information about this weird brick that people have received in the mail
Mm.
mysteriously that seems to cause some sort of strange devotion among them and like various things to happen. And so she starts to sort of dig into this and see like basically like, what is this weird culty shit is where she starts this, like, why are people so obsessed with this, and then sort of starts spiraling herself as she continues to research what's going on with this. So yeah, it's like held up by one woman this entire movie, and it is,
Mm.
yeah, I
I do
really
like
liked
that.
it. Yeah, I think you will really enjoy Monolith.
Feels
It's
like it could
right
be
up
on
your alley.
stage, and I love that.
100%. Yeah, you could
Yes.
completely picture how this would be done on stage.
Now Heart Eyes. So all I'll say here is what I said on Letterboxd. Yes, it's a wonderful time. For me, for you, for everyone listening to this podcast, everyone who loves horror films, it's a wonderful time. The profile and the commercial success and the creative fucking new ground that horror is treading, it's a great time. But even during the Renaissance, there were probably a lot of mediocre paintings. Yes,
Yeah. Hmm.
hence Hard Eyes.
Yeah.
A movie with the best of intentions and with some
Yeah.
great design
Yeah,
and some
absolutely.
great design. Hey, someone's really taken a swing at a new icon, haven't they?
Hmm.
Um, but it's unfortunately flat as fuck.
Is. Yeah. It's still, well, and this is, I've said before, I just don't vibe with Josh Rubin movies. And I thought this was going to be the one that changed
Yeah.
that. But one of the things that really bugs me is it's too self-aware and too
Yes.
referential.
Yes.
And so it's
Yes.
just too clever for its own good. It doesn't let us like sit with the story. Everyone knows they're in a story and they're
Ah,
riffing about everything, and uh just joking about things that like, even there was like one joke that was like almost really funny, and then it over explained the joke. Oh, where
yeah.
the two cops turn out to be named Hobbs and Shaw, and one of the characters
Yeah.
like, your names are Hobbs
Like the
and Shaw.
film, we
She should have just
know
left it at
it's
Hobbs and
funny.
Shaw, and then it's like
Or
the
even
film.
just like
Yeah,
a
like, no,
look,
we,
just
yeah,
okay.
right. Like, you didn't have to say like the film, and it's like,
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah,
did you
you've
get
nailed
it
it.
the
You've
whole movie,
absolutely fucking hit the nail on the head with that,
Yeah.
Corrigan. You really have.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was,
nothing else to say.
yeah, pretty much. And
Oh,
I thought
actually,
the
a few
leads were
more things
cute
to
and
say.
charming, but
Yeah. And again, kills, creative, imaginative,
great
lovely, lovely,
kills. Yeah,
lovely.
for
But
sure.
it's a movie that thinks it's funny as opposed to a movie that is
Yes.
actually funny. Um,
Unlike the monkey.
oh, hang on, just super quick on Hard Eyes,
Okay, go
right?
ahead.
I have to give voice to the fact that it is it's the sister film to In a Violent Nature. It is it's the same concept as In a Violent Nature, but done
There
for
is
idiots.
definitely a similarity there.
It just like In a Violent Nature, it's a mid-franchise movie. It takes
Hmm.
place in the middle of a franchise.
Right,
Heart
yeah.
Eyes Killer has been around for ages. He's been stalking 3 or 4 different cities, and it's another violent.
Hmm.
This is obviously part 3 of a different franchise, which
Right.
you know what I mean. Just like In a Violent Nature is, it's something that tries its best to do something different but fails. It just made me want to watch A Violent Nature again. That's all it did.
I remember having the thought it reminded me of In a Violent Nature, but obviously in a much less
Mm.
complimentary way when I
What a
watched
great
it.
film, huh? Right, let's
But
end on the monkey. Let's talk about the monkey.
well, I have one more before that I just want to throw out on our Gene
Okay.
Hackman thing, which is the
Oh,
Poseidon Adventure.
okay.
I've been rewatching some Gene Hackman movies. Listen, if you want to get to like the root of who CoRri is, watch the Poseidon Adventure, which
Mm,
kickstarts my love of disasters, horror, the sea,
wow.
all of that in this. I remember watching this when I was like 4 or 5 years old, scared the living daylights out of me, and
Nice.
all I wanted to do was watch it again. It's like
Nice.
I'm like sobbing. I'm so anxious and terrified after this, and I just want to watch it again. You know,
Beautiful.
Poseidon Adventure is a perfect disaster movie,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
absolutely perfect. Just it's funny and goofy until it's not, and it's
Mm.
horrifying and tragic and all. Oh, it's just so great. Watch the Poseidon Adventure.
On that same note, hang on a second, let me just swallow this. Oh
The end of the show, gulp of the pills.
yeah. Yeah. Uh, when I started to believe that maybe it wasn't a kind of a multiple murder suicide, I watched a Gene Hackman movie, and I went with Unforgiven, in which
Mm.
he is splendid. It wasn't a first watch for me. It was one I had not seen since probably my teens, and Clint Eastwood's shitbaggery notwithstanding,
Yep.
it's unreal. It's just unreal. He directed the absolute fuck out of that film. Again, like you said earlier on with I can't remember, you mentioned a movie just beautiful in terms of cinematography. You've got fucking split diopter shots in there. You've got beautiful framing. You've got landscape as a character. Um, Silhouette and fucking faces. Just it is a feast. It is absolute cinema, and the movie itself, just it takes its time. This tale of bad people doing bad things for what they think are good reasons, struggling against one's nature. Ugh. It's it's a fucking meal. This film, Unforgiven. It's fucking incredible, and he is resplendent in it.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I've watched several other of his movies in the past few days, and just watching his range and how good he is in everything, you're just like, damn,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
wild that that guy got out of the game. And good for him straight
isn't it?
retiring. He reached retirement age and he retired, but boy, did he have a career before he went.
Yeah.
So, The Monkey. Let's close
Yes.
out on The
Yes.
Monkey, a movie we
Well,
both just
well,
loved.
here we are. Here we are. I
Here we
mean,
are.
here, and I mean that. I say that intentionally. Here we are. This is the monkey is the most recent step forward in a path which recently has seen the substance and which recently has seen, the fucking Nosferatu. I know you hated it,
Sure.
but Terrifier. The monkey is a part of that journey, which is pushing us forward. And whatever you think of his movies, you cannot look at Oz Perkins as anything other than one of the filmmakers that is taking us forward on that journey.
Right.
He is advancing the fucking genre, um, and in such a fucking commercially friendly yet edgy way. The Monkey's a weird fucking film
It's
for for a
so weird.
for a tent pole, which it
Uh,
is, man.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, it's garish, it is brightly colored, it's lurid, it's unrestrained. You get the impression that there were no choices that were made that didn't make it into the final
Right.
edit.
Yeah.
for a tight 90-minute film,
Hmm.
it goes all out, and I don't
Which
think
I will
anyone
say, by the
said
way, for
no.
all of these movies that we've been watching this year have all been 90 minutes. This seems to be the zeitgeist right now, which I
Yes, yes,
appreciate as
yes,
well.
yes. But yeah, one doesn't get the impression that nobody passed on anything because I
Right.
don't think that'll quite,
Yeah, exactly.
because not only is there gore, and while there's a brief part of me that still laments practical gore,
Right, yeah.
if the offshoot is this level of creativity in the chunks that we're served up, I can take it. I can take it
Yeah.
because it gets weird. It gets
Yes.
really fucking weird, this film.
Yes.
Um, but it's perfectly acceptable. I know I said this to you, and I said this to you at the time, but it bears repeating because I really think I got close to summing up the vibe of this film. If you remember Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight, the two
Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt films, you could put 4 minutes of the Crypt Keeper at the start
Yeah.
of this film, and there's your vibe. It is a one shot,
Straight up. Yeah,
completely self-contained.
it has this very like 90s feel to it in
It
that way,
does.
which is
It
great.
does.
Like it's so millennial. I'm the same age as the main character in this, right? Like
Okay.
they're just when you see those flashbacks, that's me at the same
Yeah,
age, the
yeah, 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 yeah,
Goosebumps
yeah,
poster on the
yeah,
wall and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. They're supposed to be like literally the exact same age as I am.
yeah,
So it goes back to this time that like, it goes to Tales from the Crypt and things like that. Also, like your
yeah,
Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark in its tone,
yeah.
your Stephen King tone, obviously.
Of course.
All these kinds of things that like a millennial would have grown up on at that specific like late 90s, 2000s
Yeah,
point taken
but
and then
hold that up to something that what was it called? Y2K, that
yeah,
film that just
Y2K,
and
right.
just batters you over the fucking head with it. Hey,
Exactly.
it's
This
Slam
does
Dunk
not,
Festival.
yeah,
Fuck
this
off. No,
doesn't
it
do
doesn't.
that.
Nope. It
It
simply
just
is.
captures the
Yeah,
vibe of like what the horror we were watching at that time was like and what it was like to be a kid at that time and
yeah,
does that so well. And then, like you said, gets so weird with it, which also millennials are very absurdist. We're
yeah.
an
Sure, sure,
absurdist
sure.
generation. And so it really speaks to that kind of that we like things heightened. We like things to, be kind of out of left field and absurd and silly. Um, and some of the sort of like this idea behind it of kind of the inevitability of death, which of course, when you're talking about Oz Perkins too, like, his
Yeah,
father clearly
yeah.
died young, his mother died on 9/11. Like she
Fucking hell.
legitimately died in one of the planes to hit the Twin Towers. Like just this is a guy who in this movie, as silly as it is also dealing with the deaths of his parents, right?
Sure.
Like it's this character who loses his family in these tragic ways is like
It didn't
Oz
go unnoticed
Perkins.
that such a big chunk of it took place in motels either.
Yeah, like it's very much referring to his own family. There's
Yeah,
also a plane crash in
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like where someone dies horribly in a plane crash. Like he is referencing his own family in this. So this absurdist over the top film is actually also in weird ways processing a
Yes.
traumatic
Yeah.
childhood,
It's yeah,
at the same
completely,
time.
completely, completely.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to buy this on Blu-ray. I will watch
Yeah.
it over and over again. And Theo James? Theo, what is his last
Well,
name?
I'll tell you who it
Uh,
isn't.
Not James Franco.
Certainly isn't
Uh,
James Franco.
you
Took me
watched
until
an
the end
entire
credits.
you
Yep.
watched an entire season of White Lotus with this guy in it and did not
Eh,
recognize
no, thought it
this
was
was
James
not James
Franco
Franco.
the whole time.
No, James Franco wishes.
Yeah, well,
No,
yeah,
he
of
was
course.
so good in this,
Mm,
playing these two different characters that are so dissimilar from each other. Also, as I keep on telling you to watch Meet the Robinsons, one of my favorite movies of all times, the brother in this has serious Goob vibes. If you've ever, for those of you who
okay.
have seen Meet the Robinsons, straight up Goob down to like the kind of stuff he's wearing and everything. It's wonderful, and I loved that. But yeah, the monkey was just a
Yes,
triumph. Loved it. I'm
it really was.
surprised that like it's as polarizing as it is.
Mm,
Um, I'm like I don't see anything not to like about this movie, but I think it is a certain type of film,
yeah,
and it's very much
yeah,
if you're into it, you're into it, and I guess if you're not, you are very not.
yep. No, it hit the spot big time. Really, really, really fucking enjoyed it.
Mark, it's so wonderful to have you back.
As I've enjoyed being back.
So great to have
Good.
you here.
Glad to hear you say so. Thank you.
Friends, I know you enjoyed it as well. Thanks for coming along on the journey. Let us know all of your thoughts. What do you think of these here films we've talked about? What do you think about living in America's end times? Would you ever be
Have
a
you or does anyone you know ever had experience as a saturation diver?
saturation diver? Is it worth it for the big money that you might
Yeah.
blow your face off? Tell us in the comments.
And stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Yeah, we're back.
We are so back.
Love that.